Chapter 111. The quiet night slowly passed. At the break of dawn on the second day, Xiaoyan, who was sleeping, suddenly opened his eyes. This period of living in the wilderness had adjusted his biological clock extremely well. After a good night's sleep, the fatigue emanating from his joints was completely buried, replaced by a vibrant spirit. Sitting up cross-legged on the bed, Xiaoyan's hands began to form the cultivation seal, and he slowly closed his eyes. Early morning is the best time to cultivate Dou Qi, and cultivating Dou Qi is like sailing against the current. One must either advance or retreat. Only by persistent and diligent practice can one hope to break out of the cocoon and become a butterfly. Xiaoyan's breathing gradually stabilized. The space beside him suddenly rippled slightly, like waves gently undulating. Bursts of Dou Qi emanated from the air. Having undergone high-intensity training the day before, Xiaoyan's skin was now like a sponge. As soon as it made contact with the Dou Qi circulating around him, countless pores would continuously open and close in turn, greedily swallowing each wave of Dou Qi. As the pores swallowed, the majority of the Dou Qi followed Xiaoyan's breathing, burrowing into his body. After being refined in the meridians, it was continuously absorbed into the Dou Qi. Cyclone. After nearly an hour of Dou Qi cultivation, waiting until the sunlight shone into the room, making it bright, Xiaoyan slowly stopped his practice. The seal in his hands dissipated, and he exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. His sword-like eyebrows opened. A trace of golden light flashed across his pupils, then hid deep within his eyes. At this rate, perhaps I can reach 5-star Dou practitioner in about half a month. I didn't think intense training would be so effective. It's truly not a waste. Stretching his weary back, listening to the cracking sounds emanating from his body, a look of satisfied pleasure appeared on Xiaoyan's face. Today, I must enter the magical beast mountain range. Jumping off the bed, he quickly washed his face, and then walked to the side. His eyes looked somewhat helplessly at the bizarre black colossal sword. Slowly moving his feet, Xiaoyan exhaled a breath. His palms, curved like eagle talons, firmly grasped the sword hilt. His feet gripped the ground. He shouted loudly, "Rise!" Xiaoyan's Dou Qi circulated. His rigid palms could almost smash a large tree, yet when applying this force to the colossal sword, he could only slowly lift it. His body slightly lowered. Xiaoyan's face flushed red, and his breathing became increasingly rushed. With another low shout, the colossal sword was finally thrown onto his back. His body immediately sank down. However, fortunately, Xiaoyan was prepared. Biting his teeth, his body slowly straightened up. Damn it! Too terrifying. Wiping the cold sweat from his forehead, Xiaoyan said with a forced bitter laugh. Patting the black colossal sword on his back, Xiaoyan walked out of the room. After several days of adaptation, even carrying the colossal sword, his walking was no longer like before, where every step felt like shaking the earth and moving the mountains. In the magical beast mountain range, magical beasts roam rampantly and danger is dense. Traveling alone makes one very susceptible to attack by magical beasts. Therefore, those who enter the mountain are only mercenaries, and the bolder ones mostly enter in groups. With Xiaoyan's current strength, he could at most deal with a first-rank magical beast. Therefore, he fundamentally did not dare to venture into the magical beast mountain range alone. Of course, if Yao Lao were to take action, it would be a different story. However, Yao Lao had stated before the intense training that he would not take action unless Xiaoyan's life was threatened. Otherwise, he would not intervene. In other words, in Xiaoyan's future life, even with Yao Lao at hand, he could not utilize him. He had to resolve all troubles himself. Xiaoyan found this very frustrating. But he had no choice but to accept it. He knew Yao Lao was doing this because he was afraid that if Xiaoyan continued to live under his protection, Xiaoyan would later fall into a crisis of complacency. A young eagle that always hides under its mother's wing will find it difficult to soar in the sky. Only by continuously venturing into perilous situations can it unleash its potential and proudly overlook the heavens. Yao Lao did not want Xiaoyan to be an eagle hiding under others' protection. Therefore, he made Xiaoyan understand his own situation, or in other words, the matter of entering the magical beast mountain range. At the gate of the small town, quite a few mercenaries had already appeared. The continuous noise was caused by the mercenaries discussing entering the magical beast mountain range. The mercenaries in this small town were generally divided into three types. The first type was the strictly organized mercenary groups. There were only 3 such groups in Xianxia town, Tan Sun Tran. Their numbers were estimated to be over 100 people, and all members were Dou practitioners and above. It was said that the captains were all Dou masters. They could be considered the strongest power in Xianxia town. The second type of mercenary was the temporary mercenary teams. These teams dissolved after completing a mission. Their trustworthiness and coordination were far inferior to the official mercenary groups. The third type was the solo mercenaries. These individuals usually held a few hidden cards for self-preservation. At this moment, the shouts at the town gate mostly came from the second type of mercenary. Standing in a corner, Xiaoyan had no intention of joining any mercenary team yet. He secretly observed for a team that seemed a bit more disciplined. After all, the magical beast mountain range was very dangerous, and if they weren't careful, the entire team could be wiped out. Which was a normal occurrence. While Xiaoyan was focused on finding a team, the small town suddenly became much noisier. An excited shout rang out, "The 10,000 medicine chamber, Vipfbapk Trey wants to enter the magical beast mountain range to gather herbs. Little fairy doctor, Thien, will be accompanying them. There are 50 open spots. Strength must be 2-star Dou practitioner and above. Everyone, hurry up and seize the opportunity." The loud shout made the small town slightly quiet. After a moment, everyone exchanged glances. Mercenaries who believed they met the requirements immediately scrambled to sign up with the middle-aged man wearing the 10,000 medicine chambers livery. Quietly looking at the frantic mercenaries, Xiaoyan widened his eyes. He pondered for a moment, then also rushed into the crowd with all his might. With so many people entering the magical beast mountain range, ordinary magical beasts would naturally not dare to attack. Thus, his life would be somewhat guaranteed. He only needed to find a secluded and safe spot for his own cultivation. At that time, he would leave the team. The salesman's words yesterday were not false. The name Little Fairy Doctor in Xianxia town was indeed more effective than anything else. The 50 spots were fiercely contended for. However, due to his swift agility, Xiaoyan managed to rush to the front. There is one last spot remaining. The middle-aged man smiled, holding a piece of goatskin, and spoke to the jostling crowd. "Me." A youth's voice, still somewhat immature, resonated in front of the middle-aged man, slightly breathless. "Ah." Looking at the young man, who was about 17 or 18, the middle-aged man chuckled. "Little brother, we require 2-star Dou practitioners." The middle-aged man emphasized the last 4 words. Clearly, he did not believe the youth in front of him had reached 2-star Dou practitioner. "You are reading the story copied at tree in full. Little brat, where did you come from? You're not fully grown yet. Why are you running around outside? Get out of the way, kid. Don't waste the master's time." Seeing a brat snatch the last spot, a burly strongman aggressively stepped forward. Ignoring the cursing, the youth took 2 steps forward. He aimed at a tree trunk about the size of 2 arms. His hand suddenly clenched. Faint yellow dou qi enveloped his hand. After a brief silence, the youth softly shouted. The fierce force in his fist violently struck the tree. Trunk. Crack. A crisp sound rang out. The sturdy tree trunk fell before everyone's eyes, raising a cloud of dust everywhere. Is this enough? Patting his hand, Xiaoyan turned to the gaping middle-aged man and smiled. Heh, little brother's talent is truly formidable. To have cultivated to 2-star Dou practitioner at such a young age is truly a genius. The middle-aged man nodded. In awe, all right, the last spot is yours. The payment for this mission is 500 gold coins. The task is to protect the 10,000 medicine chambers herb-gathering team. I'll pay you half now, and the remaining half will be paid upon your return. Good. Smiling and nodding, Xiaoyan didn't care about the 500 gold coins. What he needed was a safe place to cultivate by. Joining them. Seeing the last spot snatched by the youth who appeared out of nowhere, the surrounding mercenaries dispersed grumbling. However, they did not forget to glance at Xiaoyan. Their eyes held a hint of strangeness. To be able to cultivate to 2-star Dou practitioner at 17 was a kind of talent rarely seen in Xingshan town. Inside the quiet forest, a team of people traveled silently. Alert gazes continuously swept over the dark, secluded areas. Their hands tightly gripped the weapons at their waists, ready to respond to any situation. These mercenaries had years of experience in the magical Beast Mountain range. Even though this was their first time cooperating, they maintained a basic level of unspoken coordination. Their eyes continuously exchanged glances, allowing them to detect danger and safety from each other's eyes. The bizarre black colossal sword restrained his Dou Qi, and its super heavy weight made Xiaoyan's journey somewhat difficult. Almost every time he stepped, his foot sank deeply into the mud. Thus, he was panting slightly after just a short journey. Wiping the sweat from his hand, he turned to look behind him. He saw the 10,000 medicine chambers herb-gathering team heavily protected by the mercenaries. His gaze casually swept around, finally resting on the white-robed woman. At this moment, the fragile beauty, who was called the Little Fairy Doctor, was also standing up. Her hand gently wiped the sweat from her forehead. Her slight panting, combined with her gentle face, made her look utterly endearing. Seeing the Little Fairy Doctor look like this, some surrounding mercenaries felt the urge to offer their backs. However, they also knew that even if they wanted to, the Little Fairy Doctor would only politely refuse with a smile. While everyone's attention was on the Little Fairy Doctor, a somewhat handsome youth, whose face held a smile, walked out from the mercenary guard team. He bowed his head and whispered to the Little Fairy Doctor. The two talked for a while. The Little Fairy Doctor just smiled and shook her head, then walked forward. Rejected by the Little Fairy Doctor, the youth's face showed no anger. He indifferently waved his hand and shouted loudly, "All Wolf Head members, pay attention. We are about to enter the magical Beast Mountain range. Everyone must be careful." "Yes, Captain." Hearing the youth's shout, the more than 10 strong men around him immediately responded. Their voices were unified. Everyone looked around. Even the Little Fairy Doctor couldn't help but turn back. Very satisfied with this reaction, the youth smiled and once again walked up to walk beside the Little Fairy Doctor, intending to be her personal guard. Damn it! If he didn't rely on his father being the captain of the Wolf Head mercenary group, did he really think that alone would sway the Little Fairy Doctor's heart? Looking at the youth chatting with the Little Fairy Doctor, a mercenary beside Xiaoyan whispered angrily. His voice held clear contempt. Narrowing his eyes, Xiaoyan's gaze swept over the youth, finally resting on the badge on his chest. A wolf head was carved on the badge. Ignoring the youth, Xiaoyan's eyes focused on the more than 30 mercenaries. It seemed these people were one of the 3 major mercenary groups, the Wolf Head Mercenary Group. looking at the mercenaries invited by the 10,000 medicine chamber to be the guards. And noting that the 10,000 medicine chamber seemed to trust the wolf-head mercenary group, they were definitely much stronger than an unorganized rabble. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been asked to be the personal bodyguards. Slowly retracting his gaze, Xiaoyan had no interest in the relationship between that youth and the little fairy doctor. Thus, he shook his head. He once again took a step forward, heading into the Magical Beast Mountain Range. The outer areas of the Magical Beast Mountain Range were considered safe. However, not long after the team entered the Magical Beast Mountain Range, they were ambushed by a small magical beast attack. The ferocity of the wilderness was immediately displayed before Xiaoyan. The ambush was by 3 first-rank magical beasts, called red ice snakes. This type of magical beast was commonly seen in the outer areas of the Magical Beast Mountain Range. Its attribute was ice, and the ice contained venom. If one wasn't treated in time within half a day after being bitten, the cold poison would freeze their blood until death. The 3 first-rank magical beasts were hanging from branches. Taking advantage of the mercenaries' surprise, they quickly injected their cold venom into 3 mercenaries. The 3 men's faces immediately turned pale white, like ice sculptures. A chilling coldness spread through their limbs. Unexpectedly attacked, everyone retaliated furiously. In just a short time, the 3 first-rank magical beasts were killed. Everyone hacked them up. But no magical core was found in the bodies of the 3 magical beasts. Towards this, the mercenaries sighed with a slight regret. It was not uncommon for them to suffer casualties without gaining anything when hunting magical beasts in the wild. Thus, this did not cause them much disappointment. The 3 mercenaries who were poisoned by the red ice snake's venom were immediately sent to the 10,000 medicine chambers herb-gathering team for the little fairy doctor to treat, quickly expelling the cold venom from their bodies. Having endured the red ice snake's attack, the mercenaries became more disciplined. Their every action was more cautious. However, avoiding magical beasts entirely in the Magical Beast Mountain Range was fundamentally impossible. The team had traveled about 500 steps when they were attacked by 3 spotted demonic beasts. However, the mercenaries were numerous and strong. They fought back the attack of the 3 spotted demonic beasts with only 10 people sustaining minor injuries. Walking at the front of the team, Xiaoyan could not avoid participating in the battle. However, when confronting a first-rank magical beast head-on, his hand only felt a slight numbness before the battle ended. Seeing his attack having no effect, the cunning magical beast ran away, making Xiaoyan bite his lip in anger. If the dou qi in his body wasn't restrained by the colossal sword, he could definitely have killed that magical beast. What a pity! However, although the magical beast escaped, Xiaoyan's subtle display of strength still made the surrounding mercenaries widen their eyes. Little brother, I can't believe it. You can actually withstand the famous strength of a serpent-tailed leopard with just your body. Tsk. So young and yet so formidable. Your future is limitless. Haha, that little brat is the youngest member of the team, yet he is a 2-star dou practitioner. It seems his strength is indeed genuine. The surrounding mercenaries also voiced their admiration, causing a small commotion in the team. However, when everyone saw the colossal sword on Xiao Yan's back, most of the suspicion was dispelled. Judging status by strength in this circle, as long as you can display your strength, you will gain respect from others. This was a simple yet direct rule. Towards these voices, Xiaoyan only smiled. He was neither arrogant nor smug. He simply continued to walk with the herb-gathering team toward the herb-gathering location. Everyone. We are near the herb-gathering area. Please take a break. You must be tired from traveling for so long. As everyone was walking, a woman's soft voice suddenly rang out in the team. Everyone stopped. They turned their heads and nodded towards the white-robed woman, whose smile held no impurities. Everyone quickly made arrangements. More than 10 mercenaries dispersed to guard the four sides, while the others sat down in place, trying to recover their spent energy. Sitting down, Xiaoyan slowly let out a breath. He subtly flicked his finger, taking out a pale green qi restoration pill. His eyes scanned the surroundings. Xiaoyan turned his head and pretended to yawn. He lightly patted his mouth, and the pill vanished without a trace into his mouth. The pill entered his body and quickly exerted its medicinal potency. Xiaoyan leaned against a tree trunk. He slightly closed his eyes. The medicinal potency quickly replenished the consumed dou qi. Aided by the qi restoration pill, Xiaoyan's state quickly fully recovered, while the mercenaries beside him still sat leisurely, waiting for their dou qi to slowly recover. Inwardly sighing that having pills was truly good, Xiaoyan stood up. He told the mercenary beside him that he was going to relieve himself, then slowly walked into the forest. Entering the forest, the light was very dim. However, this area had been checked by the mercenaries before, so Xiaoyan was not afraid of magical beast attacks. His eyes scanned the surroundings, looking for a suitable place to cultivate. Following Xiaoyan's exploration, he ventured deeper and deeper into the forest. After walking for a while, the gloomy scenery suddenly brightened. Xiaoyan looked up. He had passed through the small dense forest. A cliff appeared before his eyes. The dense tree canopy covered the base, looking very beautiful. His gaze swept over the cliff. His eyes suddenly stopped. Xiaoyan rubbed his nose. He walked forward, then stopped at a white flower. This plant had a white flower that was fully bloomed. Inside, a subtly visible deep red fruit was forming. A faint fragrance diffused from within. His eyes carefully scanned the flower. Xiaoyan slightly frowned in surprise. He then squatted down, reaching his hand towards the stem to pluck it. Just as Xiaoyan's hand was about to touch the stem, a hand reached out from within the cliff and grabbed the flower, but it only managed to grab Xiaoyan's hand. The jade hand had just touched Xiaoyan's hand. After a moment of stiffness, it retracted as if electrocuted. A gentle face was immediately revealed from within the cliff. Her expression looked somewhat flustered as she looked at the youth's face. Looking at a head suddenly popping out from the cliff, Xiaoyan was initially startled. However, when he quickly recovered his senses, he realized that this woman was the little fairy doctor from the herb-gathering team. On the black cliff, the two pairs of eyes stared at each other blankly. The scene was somewhat bizarre. Can you pull me up? Looking at each other for a moment, the little fairy doctor finally broke the awkward silence, asking gently. Staring wide-eyed, Xiaoyan nodded as if nothing had happened. He grabbed the little fairy doctor's jade hand and pulled her up with a bit of force. Her soft body formed an arc in midair, lightly leaping onto the top of the cliff. Thank you. Her feet touching the ground, the little fairy doctor quickly thanked him. Her jade hand struggled free from Xiaoyan's grasp. Her eyes swept over the black cliff without a trace. She brushed the hair from her forehead. Her gaze shifted back to Xiaoyan, and she said softly, You are the mercenary hired by the 10,000 medicine chamber this time, right? N. Xiaoyan enjoyed the subtle softness lingering on his hand. He smiled and nodded. Then his eyes shifted back to the cliff. This woman's appearance might not be the most stunning, but her gentle aura also made people's hearts flutter. If it were during a normal time, Xiaoyan might have teased her for a bit, but he was currently focused on his intense training, and had no such intention. Seeing Xiaoyan answer casually, and seemingly having no intention of leaving, the little fairy doctor's eyebrows furrowed. Her black pupils moved around. She looked at the plant on the cliff and smiled. It looks like you were about to pluck this medicinal herb. Do you recognize it? Hearing this, Xiaoyan rubbed his nose and smiled. This is the white orchid fruit, Bok Lan Kwa, a mid-level herb. It usually only grows on cliffs. Although the quantity is not small, this kind of herb is a favorite of bird-type magical beasts. It is often eaten by magical beasts soon after it grows, so it can be considered a mid-level ingredient. If sold at a pharmacy, this fully grown white orchid fruit should be worth about 4,000 gold coins. Looking at the youth slowly describing the white orchid fruit, the little fairy doctor's beautiful eyes flashed with surprise. She said somewhat amazed, "You have also studied herbal identification." "I only know a little bit on the surface." Shrugging, Xiaoyan said vaguely. Having spent so much time with Yao Lao, besides learning alchemy, Xiaoyan also gained considerable knowledge in identifying various herbs. After all, with Yao Lao's knowledge, what rare herb hadn't he seen? And as Yao Lao's only disciple, Yao Lao naturally passed all his knowledge to him. Although seeing it gives you a share, this white orchid fruit was found by you first. I won't snatch it from you. Smiling at Xiaoyan, the little fairy doctor squatted down. She carefully plucked the red fruit from the flower and offered it to Xiaoyan. Seeing the little fairy doctor's action, Xiaoyan rubbed his face and nodded. The white orchid fruit might be precious to others, but for him, it was merely an accessory. However, since she offered it, he wouldn't mind accepting it. All right, the team has probably finished resting. Should we head back now? Seeing Xiaoyan accept the white orchid fruit, the little fairy doctor was a little pleased and said quickly. His cold hand held the white orchid fruit. Xiaoyan looked at the little fairy doctor's somewhat hurried appearance. He frowned slightly. His eyes were suspicious. He felt that the little fairy doctor now seemed a little strange. Why is she in such a hurry? A sense of confusion arose in his heart. Xiaoyan put the white orchid fruit on his person. He casually asked with a smile, "Why did you run up the cliff just now?" As soon as Xiaoyan asked this question, the little fairy doctor's jade hand suddenly clenched. Her beautiful eyes flashed with a hint of confusion, which quickly hid itself. "It's nothing. There are some herbs growing on the cliff. I just wanted to take a look." "Oh." Nodding slightly, the little fairy doctor's explanation somewhat reduced the suspicion in Xiaoyan's heart. After all, quite a few herbs did grow on cliffs. Something's wrong. This cliff seems a bit strange. Just as Xiaoyan was about to leave, Yao Lao's voice rang out in his mind. His pupils slightly contracted. Xiaoyan's steps instinctively took a step forward. The sheer cliff face immediately came into focus. The sheer cliff face was covered in broken rocks. Monstrous trees grew rampantly everywhere, along with some animal skulls. Xiaoyan's gaze slowly swept over the cliff face. It instantly stopped at a spot covered by spreading tree branches. The monstrous trees growing on this sheer cliff were arranged very cleverly. However, because Yao Lao had warned him, Xiaoyan also noticed a suspicious point. His pupils contracted. Aided by the sunlight, Xiaoyan could see a black void through the gap in the bushes. Indeed, something's fishy. Quietly looking at the cliff face, Xiaoyan muttered. Suddenly, his expression subtly changed. His feet quickly retreated. He softly shouted, "What are you trying to do?" As Xiaoyan quickly retreated, a bit of white powder suddenly spewed out, rapidly covering Xiaoyan. The white powder covered Xiaoyan. After a moment, the breeze blew it away, revealing Xiaoyan lying unconscious on the ground. Looking at Xiaoyan falling into unconsciousness, the little fairy doctor clapped the powder from her hand. Her red lips were tightly pursed. She sighed, "I told you to leave, but you didn't listen. Now you have to suffer." Shaking her head, the little fairy doctor slowly walked towards the unconscious Xiaoyan. She squatted down and took out a leather strap from her clothes, intending to tie Xiaoyan's hands. However, just as the little fairy doctor was about to restrain Xiaoyan, an unexpected event occurred. Xiaoyan, who was supposed to be unconscious, suddenly opened his eyes. Both his arms spun. Taking advantage of the little fairy doctor's surprise, he forcefully seized her hands. I didn't think you would resort to this. If I hadn't been somewhat cautious, you truly would have restrained me. Startled by the sudden turn of events, the little fairy doctor's reaction was not slow. Her hands were tightly locked behind her. Her toes fiercely kicked at Xiaoyan. Seeing the little fairy doctor refusing to give up, Xiaoyan gave a cold laugh. His right leg suddenly kicked out, finally heavily connecting with the little fairy doctor's foot, causing a look of pain to appear on her gentle face. Gaining the advantage, Xiaoyan did not stop. His left leg wrapped around the little fairy doctor's two legs, tripping her. He then immediately pinned the little fairy doctor's body under his. A soft sensation emanated from the body beneath him, causing Xiaoyan's heart to subtly tremble. He inwardly shouted with satisfaction. He lowered his head, looking at the little fairy doctor's small, flushed face. He smiled naughtily. He subtly moved his body, making their two bodies even more perfectly connected. Let go of me. The man's breath on her body made the little fairy doctor feel somewhat dazed. Biting her lip, she said angrily, "Why did you attack me?" Her red lips curved. The little fairy doctor laughed coldly. I just didn't like your face. Do you believe I will ravish you right here? Slightly lowering his head, Xiaoyan could almost hear her breathing. He laughed heartily. What is under the cliff? I don't know what you are talking about. Her face subtly changed. The little fairy doctor frowned. Quickly let go of me. Otherwise, I will shout. If others see you doing this to me, you won't even think about leaving the magical beast mountain range. Go ahead and shout. If you want everyone to know the secret beneath this cliff, then shout loudly. Xiaoyan said calmly, causing the little fairy doctor to quickly abandon the idea of shouting. What exactly do you want? The little fairy doctor took a deep breath and said angrily. You are reading the story at https://truyenful.vn. What is beneath the cliff? If you don't tell me the truth, I won't mind tying you up, then hiding you, and going down to investigate alone. You. Hearing this, the little fairy doctor's face turned pale with fear. Although she was slightly older than Xiaoyan, her shrewdness and composure were far inferior to Xiaoyan's. I heard there is a kind of magical beast in the magical beast mountain range called the Ape of Union Hop Veen. It has quite an interest in human women. A playful smile rose at the corner of his mouth. Xiaoyan lowered his head, his lips touching the little fairy doctor's soft ear, and he whispered. You bastard. Little fairy doctor's face turned deathly pale. She was clearly severely frightened. She had also heard of this kind of extremely notorious magical beast. Let me stand up. I'll tell you what's beneath this cliff. Threatened by Xiaoyan, the little fairy doctor finally couldn't hold out. She reluctantly surrendered. Smiling, Xiaoyan forcefully moved his body, pulling the little fairy doctor up. However, to be cautious, he still tightly held her wrist, ignoring her angry face. The two walked towards the cliff. Their eyes simultaneously looked at the strange cliff face. After a long moment, the little fairy doctor's red lips slightly parted. She said softly with reluctance, that place is a cave I accidentally discovered while gathering herbs. Hidden behind those strange trees is a very hard to find cave. There must be an inheritance left by a predecessor in the cave. However, I haven't gone inside, so I don't know much about the inside. But judging by some traces, the predecessor who left that cave must have been very strong. Frowning, Xiaoyan looked at the little fairy doctor with interest. He smiled and said, Were you planning to go inside just now? But the cliff is very steep. I couldn't get in. The little fairy doctor casually glanced at Xiaoyan, who looked somewhat eager. She said faintly, I can share this secret with you, but you'd better not think about monopolizing it. Otherwise, I won't let you enter that place safely. Trust me, although my strength is inferior to yours. You are only a 2-star Dou practitioner, which is not considered strong in Xianxia town. Looking at the little fairy doctor's serious face, Xiaoyan smiled. He rubbed his nose and teased. I was originally planning to knock you unconscious and go in alone, but seeing how confident you are for safety, I guess I'll forget about it. Hearing this, the little fairy doctor lightly snorted. She glared resentfully at Xiaoyan. She hadn't thought this person had such a selfish intention. Should we go in now? Taking a step forward, Xiaoyan looked at the extremely secluded spot with the strange trees. He tilted his head and asked. Forget it. We've been gone for a long time. Muli will become suspicious if we don't return. The herb-gathering team will rest overnight in the magical beast mountain range. Let's come back tonight. Shaking her head, the little fairy doctor said thoughtfully. Muli, is he the young captain of the wolf-head mercenary group? Nodding, the little fairy doctor clearly didn't think too much about this person. She glanced at Xiaoyan behind her and asked softly, What is your name? Xiaoyan. Nodding slightly. The little fairy doctor turned around and walked towards the forest outside before even finishing her sentence. Looking at the graceful figure slowly disappearing into the darkness, Xiaoyan shrugged and turned back. His eyes once again looked towards the faintly visible cave. He excitedly clenched his hand. When he was in Wuten City, chatting with the mercenaries, he was extremely interested in treasure hunting and exploration. If it weren't for the little fairy doctor's restraint, he would have left the team and gone treasure hunting alone right now. Smiling softly, Xiaoyan also turned and walked towards the forest. He hadn't expected this short trip to encounter such a big treasure. When the two returned to the team, they found that the mercenaries had already been waiting for them at the resting spot. Little fairy doctor, it's a good thing you returned. Otherwise, I would have sent people to look for you. Seeing the little fairy doctor emerge from the forest, a figure quickly approached. However, when he saw Xiaoyan behind her, he slowed his steps. He smiled and asked, And this little brother is? He is a mercenary guard I just met. The little fairy doctor answered indifferently, then said softly, Young Master Muli, let's go. We only have a short distance left to reach the destination. Good. The youth called young Master Muli smiled and nodded. He stepped aside for the little fairy doctor to pass, but when Xiaoyan passed by, he suddenly extended his arm to block Xiaoyan. Frowning, Xiaoyan tilted his head to look at the handsome young captain. He smiled and asked, Young Master Muli, is there something you need? I have no ill will. You are the young 2-star Dou practitioner, right? I heard my subordinates report that your cultivation talent is very good. Muli smiled. He asked gently. It was merely luck. Xiaoyan smiled calmly. Are you interested in joining the Wolf-Head Mercenary Group? Our mercenary group offers many benefits to members who possess outstanding talent like you. A person's life in the magical Beast Mountain range is constantly in danger. It's always better to have someone to look out for you. Muli interlaced his fingers and said with a laugh. Hearing Muli's recruiting efforts, Xiaoyan rubbed his nose. He shook his head and said with a smile, I'm sorry. I'm used to being unrestrained. If I join your group, I fear I would bring you a lot of trouble. So, I'll have to disappoint young master. Muli. No problem. If the little brother thinks it over in the future, you can look for me anytime. The Wolf-Head Mercenary Group has a high status, and always welcomes people with potential. Hearing Xiao Yan's refusal, Muli waved his hand casually and said with a smile. A hint of apology faintly appeared on his face. Xiao Yan moved past Muli, then walked into the mercenary team. Looking at Xiao Yan walking into the crowd, Muli's eyes slowly narrowed. A trace of coldness flashed deep within his eyes. Xiao Yan's refusal clearly angered the young captain. Brat. I hope you don't ruin my good fortune. Otherwise, no matter what your future achievements are, I will make you stay in the magical Beast Mountain range forever. Clenching his fingers, a soft, chilling voice emanated from Muli. After the rest, the team set off again. This time, the journey was even longer than before, but it was much quieter. Although they still encountered 2 or 3 magical beast attacks, they did not cause too much chaos. You are reading the story at https://truyenful.vn. Just before dusk that same day, the team finally safely reached the herb gathering location, a valley filled with herbs everywhere. The valley was covered in various herbs. Upon entering, they immediately smelled the fresh medicinal scent drifting in the air. Taking a deep breath made people feel refreshed and relaxed. Everyone, we will set up camp here. Be careful not to damage the surrounding herbs. Wiping the sweat from her forehead, the little fairy doctor turned to the team and said with a gentle smile. Hearing the little fairy doctor speak, the surrounding mercenaries immediately agreed loudly. Their blood surged as they began to set up camp. Seeing the mercenaries desperately working with just a simple sentence from the little fairy doctor, Xiao Yan secretly sighed in awe. It seemed this woman's status in the mercenaries' hearts was truly not small, much higher than he had imagined. Shaking his head, Xiao Yan glanced at the little fairy doctor as she began to direct the herb-gathering team to dig up the herbs. He then moved to stroll around the valley. For some reason, the energy in the valley was much denser and purer than outside, which facilitated the rapid growth of the herbs here. The valley was vast, and even the 10,000 medicine chamber hadn't fully explored the area. The place where Xiao Yan and the others were standing now was merely a wide, flat area on the outer edge. Wandering along the edge of the valley, Xiao Yan couldn't find the herb he needed. He shook his head in disappointment. Looking into the pitch-black depths, he pondered for a moment. Then chose to return. With his current strength, dealing with the dense dangers in the magical Beast Mountain range was fundamentally difficult. Returning to the camp area, white tents were pitched on the ground. Many mercenaries were busy preparing dinner. Walking into the camp, he immediately saw the little fairy doctor standing in the center, smiling. Muli also followed her closely on the side. Just as Xiao Yan looked towards the two, the little fairy doctor and Muli likewise directed their gazes towards him. The intentions in their eyes were slightly different when their gazes met. Smiling, Xiao Yan nodded towards the two, then turned and walked into the tent. Looking at Xiao Yan's figure disappearing, Muli smiled. He turned to the little fairy doctor and said with a laugh. Little brother Xiao Yan's cultivation talent is truly not bad. His future achievements will definitely not be low. Perhaps. The little fairy doctor said indifferently, refusing to discuss it. I'm going to check the herbs inventory. I'll still trouble young Master Muli to help manage the order in the camp. Smiling at Muli, the little fairy doctor then walked into the central tent. After seeing him nod, his eyes stared intently at her graceful back. Only when she was out of sight did Muli retract his gaze. Clenching his hand, the corner of his mouth curved into a strange smile. The sky slowly darkened, like a burning pile of logs covering the mountain range. Darkness enveloped the forest. The branches and leaves now shrank like a ferocious beast baring its teeth. As night fell, the camp gradually quieted down. Aside from the mercenaries on night watch, only the crackling sound of firewood burning fiercely could be heard. In the quiet darkness, The tent subtly moved. A pitch-black figure gracefully rushed out of the tent, then silently slipped through the gap between the guards and ran into the forest. Not long after the black shadow left, another figure also rushed out of a different tent, quickly following the black shadow. In the forest, the occasional sound of a wolf's howl in the distance made people's hair stand on end. The two black shadows rushed quickly, one in front of the other, slowly moving further and further away from the camp. In the darkness, Xiaoyan slightly raised his head. Aided by the faint moonlight, he saw the graceful figure not far ahead. He quickly followed. Treasure hunt, let the hunt begin. The faint sound in the darkness, carrying the youth's excitement, slowly dissipated. Thank you for listening to the story on KTN Storyverse. Please like, share, and subscribe to enjoy more amazing stories. Walking in the dark and silent mountain cave, a faint chill spread and lingered around their bodies, and in the quiet passage, there was only the very slight sound of two people's footsteps. The surrounding scenery was gloomy and dim, causing Xianxia to subconsciously cross her arms, raising her head to look at Xiaoyan, who was slowly walking ahead. Hesitating for a moment, she quickened her steps and followed closely behind him. Under this illusory scenery, only the young man in front of her could give her some sense of security. Walking in this quiet atmosphere for more than 10 minutes, just when Xianxia was truly somewhat unable to endure this kind of tranquility and darkness that made people feel like going crazy, the young man in front suddenly stopped. His steps. Her body couldn't stop in time, and finally bumped into Xiaoyan's back. The two soft, high mounds, under the effect of pressure, were instantly compressed into two soft small spheres on Xiaoyan's back. The intimate contact made Xianxia's face flush as she quickly took a step back, saying with a mixture of anger and embarrassment, "What are you doing?" The soft contact just now also caused Xiaoyan to heavily exhale, coughing lightly, and pointing towards the front where a faint golden light emanated, which was a stone door, he said helplessly. The path. Hearing this, Xianxia's dark eyebrows furrowed. She took 2 steps forward to look at the stone door and mused, behind the stone door, that must be our goal, right? If the senior who created this mountain cave were here, I think he wouldn't make such a clear path to enter. Xiaoyan walked over, his palm tracing the stone door, checking its thickness for a moment and slowly shook his head. The stone door is very thick, I'm afraid at least a powerful dosher could break it. Only thinking of brute force. Looking at the golden light on the stone door. This place clearly has an earth element mechanism set up. As long as you search carefully, opening it won't be too difficult. Glancing at Xiaoyan's pale face, Xianxia reached out to touch the stone door, then slowly moved her hand upwards. You are also proficient in mechanism techniques. I thought only wood element doja or earth element doja could be proficient. Looking at Xianxia's serious expression, Xiaoyan couldn't help but be curious. I've only read some books related to mechanism techniques, so I can't say I'm proficient, but it's not a problem for a little probing. Xianxia answered casually, her hand movements continuous as before, not delayed. Nodding slightly, Xiaoyan didn't interrupt her probing and searching anymore. His gaze moved away from the stone door, following the faint light to look up and down the surrounding rock walls. On the rock walls, some carved traces were faintly visible. Although these traces were now blurry, Xiaoyan could still make out human figures on them. Perhaps these figures were left by the cave's owner. Found it. Just as Xiaoyan was observing the stone wall, Xianxia's joyful soft voice made him quickly shift his gaze back. Looking at the stone door slowly moving, Xiaoyan let out a strong sigh of relief and gave Xianxia a thumbs up. As the stone door receded, a faint glow emitted from inside the door, dispelling all the surrounding darkness, leaving none behind. Looking at the bright path inside the stone door, Xianxia gave a slight smile, but then she retreated. 2 steps, tilted her snowy white chin towards Xiaoyan, and said with a smile, "Please, go in." Shrugging, Xiaoyan picked up a few small stones from the ground, then fiercely threw them into the stone door. Seeing nothing happen, he finally felt reassured. "You really are too cautious." Looking at Xiaoyan, who still didn't forget to be careful, Xiaoxian shook her head helplessly. "Thanks for the compliment." Smiling lightly, Xiaoyan didn't mind at all. Only then did he step inside, carefully entering through the stone door. Seeing Xiaoyan step in, Xiaoxian also quickly followed. As the two people walked through the stone door, the space before their eyes suddenly became much wider. Inside the stone door was a very large stone chamber. The stone chamber looked a bit simple and empty. Moonlight stones were used on the walls to illuminate the surroundings. In the center of the stone chamber, there was a seat, and on the seat was a set of dry bones. The skull of the skeleton was buried deep down, resting on the pale thigh bones. This appearance, combined with the quiet atmosphere here, looked quite gloomy. It was sitting in front of a large stone, and on the stone were neatly arranged 3 stone boxes. Furthermore, in the 3 remaining corners of the stone chamber, there were obviously piled up quite a few glittering golden coins, along with a large amount of precious treasures. Such a large number of gold coins likely amounted to no less than several 100,000. Xiaoyan did not lack treasures and money. Moreover, the owner of these treasures seemed to have arranged them casually, perhaps not valuing them too much. Moving his gaze away from the pile of dazzling gold, Xiaoyan's eyes stopped at the very last corner, and a look of joy faintly appeared on his face. In that last corner, there was a small flower bed piled up with soil. In the flower bed, a faint exotic fragrance wafted from the various flowers and grasses planted there. Looking at these flowers and grasses, Xiaoyan and Xiaoxian almost simultaneously took a few quick steps forward. Although others might not recognize these things, both of them clearly knew in their hearts that these seemingly ordinary flowers and grasses were worth much more than those piles of gold coins. Purple indigo leaf, white spirit ginseng. Fruit, snow lotus seed. Xiaoxian's beautiful eyes stared blankly at the small flower bed, reading out the names of a number of rare and hard-to-find high-level medicinal ingredients. Her small, rosy mouth was slightly agape. Ice spirit flame grass. Moving his gaze away from the flowers and grasses, Xiaoyan's pupils suddenly contracted, finally fixating on a plant in the center of the flower bed, its leaves alternating between red and white. The leaves of this plant were distinctly split into 2 colors, red and white. The white color only appeared on the upper side, covering some ice crystal-like objects, while the fiery red color, although appearing on the underside, was like a normal burning flame. 2 completely opposite attributes and colors strangely grew on the same plant, which was indeed very miraculous. A faint mist lingered around the plant, making it look somewhat like it was wrapped in a rainbow. This strange medicinal herb was called the ice spirit flame grass. It was extremely hard to find in the outside world, and this herb was one of the ingredients Xiaoyan needed to refine the blood lotus pill. A look of excitement appeared on his face as he stared intently at the herb. Xiaoyan's face was filled with emotion. He had searched for more than half a year in Wuten City, but couldn't find any trace of the 2 herbs. But unexpectedly, soon after venturing out for experience, he had found them both. The joy of this unexpected gain truly filled Xiaoyan's heart with happiness. "You recognize this too?" Seeing Xiaoyan excitedly staring at the ice spirit flame grass, Xiaoxian couldn't help but say in surprise. "Yes, I was looking for this." Xiaoyan nodded, turning his head towards Xiaoxian. "You're really a hateful guy, opening your mouth only to ask for the most valuable thing." Hearing this, Xiaoxian's face immediately drooped, and she muttered somewhat unwillingly. Smiling awkwardly, Xiaoyan spread his hands. "Sorry, I really need it. I've been looking for it for a long time." Seeing Xiaoxian's still sullen look, Xiaoyan had to say helplessly. How about this, I only take the ice spirit flame grass, and all the remaining herbs here, you take 2/3, and I only take 1/3. How's that? Hearing Xiaoyan say this, Xiaoxian's expression finally improved a little, and she nodded slightly. Seeing Xiaoxian nod, Xiaoyan sighed in relief. Without minding the dirt, he took out many exquisite jade bottles from the storage ring on his finger, then took out a small trowel, carefully and gently dug the ice spirit flame grass along with the soil beside it, and gently placed it into a jade bottle. Quickly storing the jade bottle in the storage ring, the corners of Xiaoyan's mouth also lifted. He then handed the small trowel in his hand to Xiaoxian, signaling her to start digging the herbs. Watching with her own eyes as Xiaoyan put the ice spirit flame grass into the storage ring, Xiaoxian reluctantly took her eyes off it. For someone who loves herbs like her, possessing a valuable herb was far more exciting than getting several 100,000 treasures that would excite others. Sighing softly, Xiaoxian felt very annoyed in her heart. If this person hadn't accidentally discovered the secret under the cliff, these things would have belonged to her, but now. Alas, thinking about it, Xiaoxian felt like she wanted to cry but couldn't shed tears. You damn bastard. Grit her teeth and cursed. Xiaoxian had no choice but to accept the small trowel, and then slowly and carefully began to dig up the precious herbs in the flower bed, gently placing them into the jade bottles. Seeing Xiaoxian start digging for herbs, Xiaoyan's eyes once again moved around the stone chamber, but this search brought nothing more. Immediately, he could only turn his gaze to the 3 stone boxes placed on the large stone. Slowly walking to the stone table, Xiaoyan felt the lock for a moment. The place he touched felt faintly warm, causing him to subtly frown. After such a long period of time, it still retained warmth, clearly not an ordinary metal. Therefore, using brute force to open it would likely be difficult to achieve. Where's the key? Muttering to himself, Xiaoyan's gaze shifted and stopped at the dry skeleton behind the stone table. His eyes suddenly lit up as he saw 3 black keys hanging on the bone joints of the skeleton's hand. Rubbing his hands, Xiaoyan walked to the skeleton, bowed with an apologetic feeling in his heart, and then slowly and carefully took the keys, gently lifting them off. Crack! Due to the long passage of time, the skeleton's arm naturally fell off under a small amount of force. Looking at the broken arm bone, Xiaoyan smiled awkwardly, bowed again towards the skeleton, and then picked up the arm from the ground, intending to put it back in its original place. Holding the bone fragment in his hand, Xiaoyan's eyebrows subtly furrowed. He noticed that the weight of the dry bone in his hand seemed a bit unusual. Secretly glancing at Xiaoxian, who was focused on digging for herbs, Xiaoyan furtively looked at the arm bone he was holding. In the gap between the hand bones, a scroll seemed to be cleverly hidden, looking like a very ancient scroll. Xiaoyan swallowed his saliva, his fingers seemed to stretch out involuntarily, and then he quickly hooked the scroll out. Finally lightning fast storing it into the storage ring. You are reading the novel copied at Tree in full. After doing this, Xiaoyan finally let out a sigh of relief. He affectionately blew off all the dust on the arm bone before placing it back on its owner. Twirling the 3 black keys, Xiaoyan grinned and slowly walked towards the 3 stone boxes on the stone table. Holding the keys, Xiaoyan approached the stone table. He touched the slightly warm metal lock again, turned his face to one side, and said to Xiaoxian, who seemed completely focused on digging the herbs. Come here quickly, or else if I open it myself, you'll accuse me of monopolizing it. It seems you have a bit of conscience. Pouting her small mouth, Xiaoxian held more than 10 small bottles in her arms, then placed them on the stone table. Finally, with a somewhat reluctant look, she took out 6 small bottles and placed them in front of Xiaoyan. These are yours. Smiling, Xiaoyan took the jade bottles, glanced at them, and then stored them in the storage ring. Since he already had the ice spirit flame grass, these herbs, although precious, were not worth much to him now and wouldn't be of much use. Waving the 3 black keys in his hand towards Xianxia, Xiaoyan smiled. Shall I open it? Open it. Glancing at Xiaoyan, Xianxia quickly put the jade bottles back into her arms, which instantly made her slender waist appear much fuller. Looking at the stone box, Xiaoyan licked his lips. He casually took one of the 3 keys and inserted it, probing slowly and carefully. Not this one. The key was blocked halfway through insertion. Xiaoyan shrugged, immediately pulled it out, and replaced it with another key. Wrong again. Shaking his head helplessly, Xiaoyan gripped the last key, then tried inserting it into the lock, slowly moving it inside. Watching the key go deeper and deeper, Xiaoyan and Xianxia couldn't help but hold their breath. In the space inside the stone chamber, there was only the very slight sound of the key engaging the metal lock. Click! Suddenly, a clear, small sound echoed in the stone chamber, causing Xiaoyan's hand to pause. It's open. Looking at the metal lock that had sprung open, Xiaoyan sighed in relief and said with a smile. Open it quickly. Xianxia's face also held a smile, and she urged him with a touch of haste. Xiaoyan glanced at the anxious Xianxia, then took a few steps back. He cupped his hand, then suddenly struck out, a surge of fierce energy erupting from his palm, striking directly upwards from beneath the lid of the stone box. The lid was flipped up. Xiaoyan stood still and watched for a moment. After seeing no reaction, he finally sighed in relief, turned towards Xianxia, who was standing beside him with her arms crossed, her eyes cold as she looked at him, and shrugged. A little caution doesn't hurt. If you were put into a mountain of magical beasts, I think you would definitely be more agile at surviving than outside, because those magical beasts wouldn't stand a chance against your caution. Xianxia said indifferently. I think so too. Rubbing his nose, Xiaoyan laughed again. Angrily glared at this extremely thick-skinned guy, Xianxia walked to the stone table, her eyes looking inside the stone box on the table. She was slightly stunned, then her face broke into a happy smile. She reached her jade hand inside and took out an ancient, multicolored scroll. What is this? Leaning his head in curiously, Xiaoyan asked. A poison cannon recording how to concoct poisons. Xianxia handed the 7-colored scroll over, saying with a long laugh. Poison cannon? Frowning in surprise, Xiaoyan took the scroll from her small hand, examined it briefly, and upon seeing the small text next to the scroll, he read in amazement, 7-colored. Poison cannon? Is there really such a thing as poison concoction? Could it be that the person who left these things behind was an unsuccessful physician? On the Douqi continent, only some physicians would create a small number of poisons for self-defense, and people on the continent called them poison masters. However, the status of poison masters was much lower compared to alchemists. Perhaps so. You can't share this with me, because due to my innate attributes, I can't become an alchemist, so I can only do these kinds of things. Speaking of this, a layer of gloom appeared on Xianxia's face. Evidently, her deepest hope was to be able to become an alchemist. Looking at Xianxia's downcast face, Xiaoyan smiled, throwing the 7-colored scroll back, saying, That's fine too. However, mastering this would consume a lot of energy. Cultivating Douqi has already nearly exhausted my energy. I won't be foolish enough to learn this as well. Trying to do too many things leads to failure. Thank you. Hearing Xiaoyan say this, Xianxia inwardly sighed in relief. She took back the scroll and nodded gratefully. What do you have in your hand? You should put it away quickly. I may not be considered a true gentleman, but at least right now we are partners. I wouldn't do something like secretly using poison. Looking at Xianxia putting away the 7-colored scroll, Xiaoyan smiled, then suddenly said lightly. Her face slightly froze, then a look of shame appeared. Xianxia opened her hand, revealing a pinch of light green powder resting within. Caught by Xianxia's face flushed red and she stammered, unable to speak. Forget it. After all, you are a girl, alone with me looking for treasure. A little caution is not surprising. Shrugging, Xiaoyan said as if nothing had happened. Thank you. Speaking a grateful thank you, Xianxia put away the green powder she was holding. Rubbing her plump cheeks, Xiaoyan's gaze turned towards the second stone box. He took a key, inserted it, and then slowly probed. What does that green powder you used do? As the key in his hand slowly went deeper, Xiaoyan casually asked. Novel source, Trillionful. Full. It's just a mixed herbal powder made from drunk dragon grass, and a few other herbs with a hypnotic effect. If consumed, it can make a person sleep soundly for half a day. However, these simple powdered poisons can be easily suppressed, or even expelled from the body by anyone with a little bit of strength using dou qi. Xianxia said somewhat sheepishly. It's a completely non-lethal poison. It seems you're not a vicious person either. Xiaoyan curled his lip. His movement paused slightly and he grinned. Open. Along with Xiaoyan's voice, the tightly closed stone box slowly opened. Relying on the moonlight shining down on the ground, Xiaoyan and Xianxia carefully watched what was inside the stone box, not daring to miss anything. Another scroll. Looking at a black scroll placed inside the stone box, Xiaoyan's eyebrows instantly furrowed. Reaching out to take the black scroll from the box, Xiaoyan observed it carefully for a moment, finally stopping at the small text on the scroll. Xian level high-grade flight dou technique, eagle wings. Flight dou technique. Mutters a somewhat strange phrase. Xiaoyan's eyes slowly widened, and he exclaimed in surprise, is it the rarest dou technique, flight dou technique? Flight dou technique. What is that? Hearing this name for the first time, Xianxia instantly became confused. She had heard of attack dou techniques, defense dou techniques, and movement dou techniques, but this was the first time she had heard of flight dou technique. The meaning is as the name suggests. This dou technique can allow people to fly in the sky. Clicking his tongue in awe, Xiaoyan explained. Flight. Isn't it true that only Dou Ling powerhouses or those with exceptional talent can barely fly? Hearing this, Xianxia was startled, her expression full of confusion. On the Dou Qi continent, to fly above the ground, one had to be a Dou Ling or stronger to manage flight over short distances. When one's strength reached the Dou Wang or Dou Huang level, one could easily release Dou Qi outward, condensing it into energy wings, allowing them to overcome the pull of the ground and fly in the air. Flight was something that attracted many powerhouses to fight over, even if one's strength was great. If they hadn't reached the Dou Wang level, the preciousness of a flight dou technique in this situation was self-evident. Gripping the black scroll tightly in his hand, Xiaoyan slowly exhaled, forcefully suppressing the joy in his heart, and gestured with his hand towards Xianxia. I understand, this belongs to you, right? Seeing Xiaoyan's movement, Xianxia immediately understood his meaning, and nodded helplessly. Hee, everyone gets a share. Grinning, Xiaoyan's harvest tonight almost made him laugh continuously. There's still one last box. Open it quickly. And then we'll go back. Directing her gaze toward the last stone box, Xianxia urged. All right. With the two previous harvests, Xiaoyan was full of vitality. Gripping the unused key in his hand, he carefully prepared to open the stone box. The stone chamber quieted down. Xiaoyan's body lowered slightly. Just as he was about to open the box, his body stiffened and he quickly turned around to look towards the stone door, his expression turning grim. Someone's coming. What? Hearing this, Xianxia was equally startled and quickly shook her head, saying, "Impossible. Only the two of us know about this place." "I didn't hear wrong, and the number of people who entered is not small." Xiaoyan looked up at Xianxia, his face extremely unsightly. And a cold intent flashed in his eyes. "You suspect I called them?" Seeing Xiaoyan's expression, Xianxia immediately became angry. "If I wanted to harm you, you would have been dead several times already." Looking at Xianxia's furious appearance, Xiaoyan frowned. He quickly turned around, the key in his hand repeatedly trying to insert into the lock of the stone box. But under the tense situation, he couldn't insert it properly. "Damn it!" Cursing in frustration, Xiaoyan wrapped his arms around the stone box, trying to lift it, but the box was clearly fastened securely to the stone table. "Forget it." Cursing softly, Xiaoyan slowly exhaled and said coldly, "They've gotten in." Hearing Xiaoyan, Xianxia quickly turned her gaze towards the outside of the stone door. Sure enough, she heard footsteps approaching closer and closer. "Haha, Xianxia, thank you for leading the way. It seems the information I received wasn't false after all." More than 10 figures slowly walked in from the darkness outside the door. A familiar, faint laugh, full of smugness, echoed within the stone chamber. "Muli." Hearing this voice, Xianxia immediately gritted her teeth. At the dark stone door, 10 figures slowly walked in from the darkness outside the door, finally forcefully destroying the stone door. A figure walked out. From behind, and under the moonlight shining on the ground, his face was revealed. It was indeed the leader of the wolf-head mercenary group, Muli. His first glance swept over the pile of glittering gold coins inside the stone chamber, and a hint of greed flashed in Muli's eyes. Licking his lips, he glanced at the stone box that Xiaoyan and Xianxia were opening, and couldn't help but smile. "Sorry to interrupt the two of you." Slowly gripping the key in his hand, Xiaoyan's expression was somewhat grim. He glanced at Xianxia beside him, whose eyebrows were raised, and said coldly to Muli, "You were following us." "Not exactly following. A few days ago, I received intelligence that Xianxia was looking for the treasure trove in the cave, but since I didn't know the exact location." Muli shrugged and said with a smile, "How did you get the intelligence?" "I only mentioned this to my assistant, Li Fei." You heard it from her?" A look of confusion first appeared on Xianxia's face, which then quickly turned into fury. "Haha, a foolish woman. Just sweet talk a little, and she'll spill everything in her heart." Muli smiled, not denying Xianxia's guess. "You're a bastard." Xianxia's willow eyebrows stood up as she cursed. "I'm sorry, but these things are too important to our wolf-head mercenary group. If we get them, we can easily absorb all the forces in Xianxia town. Only then will we be qualified to expand our strength outwards. In my eyes, the limit is never just this small village." Muli said indifferently. "Hand everything over to me, Xianxia. I've always had feelings for you. You should understand that as long as you follow me, after I take charge of the wolf-head mercenary group, I will absolutely not treat you badly." Raising his gaze, full of affection, to Xianxia, Muli's voice suddenly softened. "Follow you? Talking to you now already makes me sick." Xianxia's voice, full of mockery, rang out, showing a lack of regard for him. Muli bribing someone close to her to spy on her had made her extremely furious. Muli smiled, a cold glint flashing in his eyes. He said softly, "No matter. Then I will forcibly keep you by my side." After speaking, Muli's gaze shifted to Xiaoyan, who was standing silently on the side, and he laughed. "I advised you to join the wolf-head mercenary group earlier, but you repeatedly refused. Now, even if you want to join, it's too late. A mercenary group that doesn't even have a single Dodosher. How dare it be so arrogant?" Rubbing his nose, Xiaoyan shook his head and mocked. At least it's easy to kill you. Muli smiled brightly, but his killing intent was palpable. Hand over everything, and I'll let you die intact. With his arms crossed in front of his chest, Muli looked coldly at Xiaoyan. Xiaoyan grimly bit his lip. His gaze swept over the rank badges of the more than 10 mercenaries standing at the completely destroyed stone door. The strength of these 10 mercenaries was all at the 4-star and 5-star doja level, and Muli's strength was 6-star doja. Mentally calculating the opponent's strength, Xiaoyan's heart was somewhat heavy. Right now he could, at most, deal with 1 4-star doja. However, if he removed the black heavy sword from his back, he could hold his own against a 6-star doja for a while. But at the stone door, there were more than 10 mercenaries with considerable strength. With Xiaoyan's current strength, if he were surrounded by them, there was an 80 to 90% chance he would be instantly killed. Teacher! Xiaoyan called out to Yao Lao in his heart, but there was no response. Xiaoyan could only smile bitterly and shake his head. It seemed that getting Yao Lao to help him out of this predicament was not very likely. Muli stood in the middle of the stone door with his arms crossed, watching the continuous changes on Xiaoyan's face with a playful expression, feeling like a cat playing with a mouse. To be honest, you have a lot of talent, but right now, you're still not strong enough. To be frank, I'm very afraid of your revenge later. So to avoid such a situation that would make it hard for me to eat and sleep, you have to die here today. Tapping his fingers gently on his arm, Muli said with a smile. His father had taught him since childhood that no matter who he provoked later, if he had the opportunity, he must completely eliminate them and absolutely not leave the opponent any chance for revenge. Looking coldly at Muli's smiling face, Xiaoyan narrowed his eyes. Over so many years, he had encountered many situations that would make others frightened, but he had never faced a scene where he was about to be surrounded and killed by others. You're right. If I escape, I will make the wolf head mercenary group restless, even the chickens and dogs. Xiaoyan's voice was cold as he uttered each word. I really admire you. In this situation, you still have the courage to show hostility towards us. This only strengthens my resolve to kill you right here. Muli laughed, his eyes also filled with killing intent. Xiaoyan looked back, his black eyes equally filled with fierce killing intent. Something in Xiaoyan's palm suddenly moved. A hand from behind his back silently placed something into his palm. His eyes narrowed, Xiaoyan clenched his hand without a trace, and casually glanced at Xiaoxian beside him from the corner of his eye. This is the hypnotic powder from before. Xiaoxian's rosy lips subtly moved, and a very small sound was transmitted into Xiaoyan's ear. Nodding lightly, Xiaoyan's gaze quickly swept over the walls inside the stone chamber. Looking at the faint moonlight shining on the stone chamber, an idea sparked in his mind. Follow me closely, Xiaoyan said with a solemn expression, in a low voice. Okay. Nodding obediently at this moment, Xiaoxian could only place all her hope in Xiaoyan. Move out, kill that kid. Be careful not to hurt Xiaoxian, but you must restrain that woman for me. Looking at the two of them, Muli waved his hand coldly and said. Understood. Hearing Muli's command, the more than 10 mercenaries behind immediately split into 5, then rushed towards Xiaoyan and Xiaoxian with ferocious expressions. Although 5 people came over, the remaining ones still strictly guarded the stone door. Xiaoyan raised his eyebrows slightly. These mercenaries were very cautious, which gave him a headache. Thud. His gaze swept over the 5 rushing mercenaries. Xiaoyan's palm suddenly lifted, condensing strong energy. He raised the bag of herbal powder in his hand into midair, then suddenly made it explode. The powder scattered everywhere, instantly filling the entire stone chamber. Hold your breath. Those near the door, stay still and don't move. Block the exit. Ma Si, attack them. Seeing the powder filling the stone chamber, Mu Li's face greatly changed, and he quickly shouted. Mu Li's rapid command helped the mercenaries, who were momentarily chaotic, quickly calm down. The 5 mercenaries inside immediately drew the weapons from their waists, their eyes flashing with malice, and rushed towards Xiao Yan and Xiao Yixian, who were not far away. Pulling Xiao Yixian with one hand, Xiao Yan's body immediately retreated to the center. His palm instantly curved, then he used his suction palm to pull a moonlight stone embedded in the wall towards him. The moonlight stone was immediately freed from its binding and was forcefully caught in Xiao Yan's hand. With a turn of his hand, the moonlight stone was thrown into the storage ring. Without the illumination of the moonlight stone, the light inside the stone chamber instantly dimmed significantly. After putting away one moonlight stone, Xiao Yan's solemn face moved quickly. He continuously used the suction palm, and the remaining 2 moonlight stones were also collected into the storage ring. After the last moonlight stone was stored in the ring, the inside of the stone chamber suddenly became pitch black. As the darkness descended, Xiao Yan immediately pulled Xiao Yixian's hand. With a movement of his body, he shot out towards the position of the stone door in his memory. Don't panic. Get out the fire starters. Those guarding the door, stand still, don't move around. Those inside, only move further inwards. Remember, anyone who dares to approach the door, no matter who it is, kill them. The sudden appearance of darkness made Mu Li's expression grim. However, his presence of mind was quite quick, and he hastily shouted out instructions. With someone leading the command, the other members of the wolf-head mercenary group also calmed down from their confusion. Some of them who had fire starters quickly pulled them out, but just as they were about to raise them, a strong gust of wind blew past their faces. A hand containing fierce energy heavily struck their chests. Several mercenaries, unable to react in time, cried out in pain, and then simultaneously fell to the ground. He's coming. He's heading for the stone door. Stop him quickly. A mercenary who was attacked endured the pain and shouted. Hearing his subordinate's loud cry, Mu Li's face suddenly darkened. His footsteps quickly retreated a few steps, just stopping outside the stone door, completely blocking the space of the stone door. Thud. A strong surge of energy suddenly shot from the front towards the 5 mercenaries with 5-star doja strength, who were standing at the stone door. If they hadn't reacted in time, they would have been blown away by this surge of energy. However, their bodies were heavily shaken. While their bodies were still unstable, 2 figures, like loaches, silently darted out through the gap between them. When they regained their senses, it was too late to stop them, and they immediately shouted towards Mu Li, who was standing at the very end, "Captain, watch out, they've reached you." His pupils slightly contracted. Mu Li slowly spread his legs, blocking the narrow passage that had been destroyed. He clenched his hands, and a faint green dou qi began to emerge. Under the cover of the emerald green dou qi, his ordinary hands gradually turned the color of wood. I want to see how a 2-star doja like you can push me back face to face. Laughing coldly, Mu Li pulled out a luminous pearl from his body, projecting a faint light towards the front. Although dim, it was enough to illuminate the area 3 feet in front of him. For this narrow passage, it was sufficient. As soon as the luminous pearl was taken out, 2 figures rushing quickly appeared. Thanks to the luminous pearl's glow, Mu Li could vaguely see the killing intent on the young man's face. Get back. Looking at Xiao Yan rushing forward like a moth to a flame, Mu Li laughed coldly. His wood-like fist, faintly radiating green light, carried a fierce surge of energy and fiercely slammed down towards Xiao Yan. Xian level low-grade dou technique, wood's immovability. Rushing into the surge of energy, Xiao Yan's face felt a slight pain. Looking up, he could clearly see Mu Li's ferocious eyes. Damn it. Cursing inwardly, Xiao Yan took a deep breath. His hands reached behind his back to grip the heavy black sword. With a shout, the great sword instantly left his back, disappearing into the storage. Ring. As soon as the great sword disappeared, Xiaoyan's speed almost instantly soared. The dou qi in his body flowed rapidly without any hindrance. At this moment, it was surging like a tide, wildly rushing through Xiaoyan's meridians. After enduring that pressure, Xiaoyan finally erupted for the first time. He clenched his hands, and the blue veins on his body continuously bulged. A terrifying force was rapidly condensing. Feeling the strong flow of dou qi in his body, a look of madness appeared on the young man's handsome face. His eyes were subtly cold as he glanced at Mu Li, who was almost within reach. The dou qi in his body began to circulate according to the dou technique method, wildly and fiercely. Octane blast. A shout suddenly rang out in his mind, almost instantly stiffening Xiaoyan's sleeve. What was originally soft cloth was now as hard as iron. With a fierce energy concealed within his sleeve, Xiaoyan's fist suddenly contracted, then shot out fiercely in an instant. Bang! The two fists fiercely collided in the narrow mountain cave, and the thunderous sound echoed continuously within the small cave. Seeing Xiaoyan meet him head-on, Mu Li's expression slightly changed. He hadn't expected that in just a moment, this person's strength had jumped several levels. I order you, stop him, kill him quickly. Spare no expense. A cold roar escaped from Mu Li's throat. Xiaoyan's current display of strength made this powerful and cunning leader somewhat horrified. He was so young yet could contend with him. A 6-star doja. What would happen in a year or 5 years? If he allowed him to escape today, the wolf-head mercenary group would sooner or later be destroyed by the hands of this little murderous star. Just imagining the earth-shattering revenge that would come later, the killing intent in Mu Li's heart surged fiercely. Hearing Mu Li's shout, a cold, mocking smile appeared at the corner of Xiaoyan's mouth. His lips moved slightly, explode. Thud. Another muffled sound suddenly rang out. However, this somewhat tragic sound came from Mu Li's body. Pft. The sudden explosion of energy inside his body instantly turned Mu Li's face pale. His body swayed violently, and finally, a mouthful of fresh blood was wildly spat out. Go. Defeating Mu Li. Xiaoyan forcefully suppressed the immediate urge to kill him, making a quick decision. He grabbed Xiaoxian behind him, and without looking back, rushed straight out of the mountain cave. Just as Xiaoyan began to charge out, more than 10 mercenaries also rushed out from the stone chamber. Seeing Mu Li lying on the ground with a pale face, they were all involuntarily shocked. Their captain's strength was at least 6-star doja, yet he was defeated by that kid. This cruel reality before everyone's eyes made everyone momentarily stunned. Fools, why are you standing there in a daze? Chase after him quickly. You must kill that kid. Send out a signal to the people ambushed up above to intercept and kill him. Kill them all. Looking at the stunned people, Mu Li spat out a mouthful of fresh blood and shouted angrily. Understood. Mu Li's shout quickly woke these mercenaries up. They hastily responded, then their bodies flashed, rushing wildly towards Xiaoyan and Xiaoxian. Mu Li moved his body with difficulty, leaning against the stone wall. He heavily exhaled, a hint of ferocity flashing in his eyes. He smashed the surface of the stone wall and said menacingly, "Little bastard, don't let me catch you, or else I will definitely make you wish for death but unable to die, and wish for life but unable to live." Xiaoyan's expression remained unchanged. He frantically pulled Xiaoxian out of the cave with one hand, wiping the blood from his mouth with his sleeve, leaving red, fresh bloodstains. Since learning the hidden energy burst of Octane Blast, this was the first time Xiaoyan had used it in combat. The effect was beyond his expectations, but but the exchange of blows with Muli had also caused him quite a severe injury. With Muli's cunning, there will definitely be wolf-head mercenaries waiting above the cliff. Xianxia said, breathing heavily, as a reminder. We only have a chance to escape into the dense forest by climbing the cliff. Otherwise, there's only one path, death. Xiaoyan said in a deep voice. Don't go that way after we get out. If they cut the rope, we'll surely be smashed to pieces. Under the mountain. Don't go that way. Do you want to jump into the abyss? Or wait for them to come and surround us? Xiaoyan frowned, his steps not slowing down. Biting her rosy lips. Xiaoxian seemed to make a decision and spoke, I can take you away. Xiaoyan's heart was slightly moved, and he remained silent. Just don't pull any tricks. You helped me, so I won't harm you. Seeing Xiaoyan's hesitant look, how could Xiaoxian not know what this always cautious guy was thinking? She immediately urged helplessly. Slowly exhaling, Xiaoyan nodded slightly. Seeing Xiaoyan nod, Xiaoxian took out a short bamboo flute from her person, placed it on her small mouth, and gently blew. A slightly strange sound wave quickly spread from the bamboo flute, piercing through the passage and finally echoing in the night sky around the cliff. What are you doing? Looking at Xiaoxian's action, Xiaoyan couldn't help but ask curiously. Calling my partner. Waving the bamboo flute in her hand, Xiaoxian smiled brightly, it's a first-rank azure eagle. Flying magical beast. Hearing this, Xiaoyan was surprised. Seeing Xiaoxian nod, a look of joy clearly appeared on his face. They were saved this time. It's a pity there's still one stone box left unopened. Following closely behind Xiaoyan, Xiaoxian said regretfully with some frustration. Forget it, it's better not to be too greedy. We'll have a chance to find him, and take it back later. A cold look flashed across Xiaoyan's face. Hee, I was worried that cultivation would be too boring. I didn't expect this person to bring me some joy. Fine, Wolfhead Mercenary Group, in the next few days in the Magical Beast Mountain Range, I'll have a little fun with you all. After running through the dark passage for a while, the mouth of the cave, illuminated by the moonlight, became increasingly clear. In an instant, the area in front of the two people, close to the rock wall. His gaze quietly looked up towards the cliff top, and sure enough, he found quite a few people holding torches patrolling above the cliff. They really did leave some behind. Cursing, Xiaoyan pressed his ear to the ground and said in a deep voice, the pursuers are coming soon. Where is your flying magical beast? Xiaoxian's beautiful eyes scanned the night sky. She put the bamboo flute back to her mouth and blew. The strange sound wave silently echoed in the night sky. Caw. Not long after the sound wave spread, a sharp cry suddenly echoed in the night sky. Thanks to the moonlight, Xiaoyan could vaguely see a huge blue eagle in the depths of the distant mountains, rapidly darting towards them. In just a moment, it descended right down to the cave entrance. Let's go. Looking at the azure eagle, Xiaoxian immediately sighed in relief, waving her hand towards Xiaoyan. Nodding slightly, Xiaoyan turned his head, and could already see a few figures inside the mountain cave. He smiled coldly. His arm wrapped around Xiaoxian's slender waist, and with a movement of his body, he directly leaped onto the massive body of the azure eagle. Xiaolan, go quickly. Sitting on the eagle's back, Xiaoxian urged hastily. Hearing Xiaoxian's voice, the azure eagle immediately spread its wings and flapped powerfully. A strong gust of wind blew, and then it carried the two people on its back, slowly rising into the air. Shoot it down. Looking at the two people on the eagle's back, the more than 10 mercenaries who had just appeared at the cave entrance quickly shouted up to the cliff top. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Hearing the shouts from below, the people above the cliff were momentarily in disarray, and then a barrage of arrows, breaking the air, shot up, firing towards the azure eagle in the air. Looking at the incoming arrows, Xiaoyan was slightly startled. Just as he was about to use his hand to deflect all the arrows, the eagle's two wings suddenly shook strongly. A light green surge of energy swept backward, causing all the incoming arrows to fall downwards. Due to sitting crouched on the eagle's back, the strong wind blew Xiaoxian's long hair somewhat messy. She gently stroked the azure eagle's body with her tender hand, turned her head, and smiled at Xiaoyan. "We're safe now." Phew. Heavily exhaling a long breath, Xiaoyan's body, sitting on the eagle's back, suddenly softened. Looking down at the dense forest quickly receding behind him, his heart felt a slight throb. This was the first time he had flown so high. Wiping the cold sweat from his forehead with one hand, Xiaoyan's whole body felt weak. The high-intensity battle earlier truly made him extremely exhausted. Sitting on the eagle's back, Xiaoyan looked back at the mountain cave. His cold eyes fixated on Muli, who was standing at the cave entrance, being supported by a mercenary. The two beams of light met in the darkness. Both smiled ferociously at each other, not concealing the killing intent directed at the opposite party. As the azure eagle gradually flew farther away, Xiaoyan also retracted his gaze, turned his face, and asked Xiaoxian, "Where are you planning to go now?" Her fingers pushed back the strands of hair on her forehead. The strong wind blew her clothes tightly against Xiaoxian's body, revealing exquisite, subtly defined curves. "I will return to the herb collecting team," Xiaoxian said with a faint smile. "You're going back? That Muli might also go back there." Hearing this, Xiaoyan said with some surprise. "Haha, once I return to the herb collecting team, he won't dare to do anything to me anymore." Xiaoxian smiled. With her reputation in Xingshan town, if Muli didn't want to incur everyone's wrath, he absolutely wouldn't dare to attack her. And once I return to Xingshan town, he won't dare to make a move even more. The power of the 10,000 medicine store is not comparable to a small wolf-head mercenary group. Furthermore, the leaders of the two major mercenary groups both owe me favors. Then it's up to you. Xiaoyan nodded slightly. Looking at the attitude of these mercenaries towards Xiaoxian, Xiaoyan already understood. She was a person with a good reputation in the town. So he shouldn't worry too much about her safety. "Where are you going?" Turning her head, Xiaoxian asked. "Me? Hee, I certainly won't go back. I don't have a reputation like yours. If Muli wants to kill me, no one will dare to stop him, not to mention the strength I just revealed. That guy will definitely use every means to kill me. So I can't return to Qingshan town." Xiaoyan gripped the azure eagle's feathers with his hand and smiled. "You're leaving here?" Hearing this, Xiaoxian asked with a bit of hesitation. "Leaving? Hee, there's no way Xiaoyan would run away from this situation. From now on, I will cultivate in the magical beast mountain range for a while and then I will slowly settle the score with the wolf-head mercenary group," Xiaoyan said with a cold laugh. The captain of the wolf-head mercenary group is a 2-star dosher. If you want revenge, you need to be careful. After a moment of silence, Xiaoxian reminded him solemnly. "It's fine, he's just a dosher. It's not like I haven't seen one before." Waving his hand casually, Xiaoyan said with a carefree smile. The last time, the Jiaolai family also had a dosher, but he ended up causing the entire family to decline. Seeing Xiaoyan's demeanor, Xiaoxian could only nod, saying no more. She turned her head and commanded the azure eagle to fly deep into the vast mountain range. The eagle's back gradually fell silent. Both people slowly reflected on the excitement of facing death earlier. Hee, that kid is indeed not bad. To be able to escape from such extreme danger. This kind of perilous situation truly exceeded my expectations. Just as Xiao Yan closed his eyes to recover his dou qi, Yao Lao's laughter suddenly rang out in his mind. Hearing Yao Lao finally speak, Xiao Yan curled his lip and inwardly snorted, "I thought you had gone missing." "Haha, what are you complaining about, kid? If you don't put yourself in such a dangerous situation, how can you truly break through?" Yao Lao laughed loudly. "And how did it feel when you removed the constraint just now?" "Not bad." Rubbing his nose, Xiao Yan said indifferently. "Hee, do you still want revenge?" Yao Lao's laughter was like that of a cunning old fox, full of temptation. "Have you ever seen me suffer a loss without retaliating? That bastard wanted me dead, so how can I let him off easily?" Xiao Yan smiled, a cold glint flashing in his eyes. "You heard what that little girl said, the captain of the wolf-head mercenary group is a 2-star dosher." Yao Lao smiled, "So, if you plan on revenge, you must quickly raise your strength to become a dosher." "Of course. During this time, I will cultivate deeply in the magical Beast Mountain range. No matter how tough the cultivation method you use, teacher, I will persevere to the end." Xiao Yan shrugged and said, "Haha, good. Since you have this determination, I will use the fastest way to help you become a dosher without any lasting side effects." Hearing Xiao Yan's words, Yao Lao was instantly delighted. It seemed that hatred was a good catalyst for determination. The azure eagle circled, then landed on a mountain peak. Below is the location of the herb collecting team. Since you're not going back, I'll drop you off here. After daybreak, you can leave on your own. How's that? Looking down at the fire below, Xiao Yixian turned her head and smiled at Xiao Yan. "All right." Smiling and nodding, Xiao Yan clasped his hands towards Xiao Yixian, smiling, "We part ways here temporarily. The next time we meet might be after a very long time." Her snowy white chin nodded slightly. Xiao Yixian hesitated for a moment, then finally took out a pouch of herbal powder from her clothes and handed it to Xiao Yan. "These herbal powders aren't very strong, but they can barely be used for self-defense." Accepting the slightly warm pouch of herbal powder, Xiao Yan felt a little touched in his heart. Truthfully, he and Xiao Yixian were just passing acquaintances, and he had shamelessly taken more than half of the treasures from her. Although one could say he had saved her life earlier, at a time like that, any man would have acted the same way. Rubbing his nose and smiling, Xiao Yan nodded slightly, turned his back to Xiao Yixian, and waved his hand. He turned and walked into the dark forest, saying, "See you again. The next time we meet, I will completely destroy the wolf-head mercenary group to let both of us vent our anger. Haha, we'll take action together." Her beautiful eyes widened, and Xiao Yixian laughed longly. Watching the young man's silhouette slowly disappear into the darkness, Xiao Yixian finally retracted her gaze. She turned her head towards the camp, and said softly, indifferently, "Muli, you just wait and see. A woman's vindictiveness is much higher than you imagine." Smiling coldly, Xiao Yixian leaped back onto the azure eagle, and then slowly flew up, finally disappearing into the dark night sky. After she disappeared for a while, the first rays of sunlight gradually appeared, shining into a white tent. Xiao Yixian, who was asleep, was suddenly woken up. Hearing the chaotic noises around the tent, and a familiar voice that she extremely disliked, a cold look slowly appeared on her small, rosy mouth. She got out of bed, changed her clothes, and then slowly walked out of the tent. Outside the tent, 7 or 8 mercenaries were solemnly guarding the door. At this moment, these guards were strictly stopping a young man blocking the outside. When they saw Xiao Yixian come out, they all quickly saluted her. "Ha ha! Young Master Muli, it's so early. Why are you already rushing into my tent?" Turning to the mercenaries and smiling, Xianxia turned her head and looked at Muli, whose expression was not very good, and said with a smile, "Haha, it's nothing. It's just that time is not early, so I wanted to call Xianxia to get going." His eyes swept over Xianxia, and Muli raised his eyebrows and smiled. Nodding slightly, Xianxia waved her hand, signaling the mercenaries to disperse. She took 2 steps forward, smiled, and looked at Muli. "Young Master Muli, the mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. Your methods are indeed superb. It's a pity the mantis was too cunning." Muli smiled, but his smile held a hint of coldness. His eyes scanned Xianxia's tent and he said indifferently, "I knew you would return here, so I wouldn't dare to harm you, but my target is not you. Hand over Xiaoyan, and I won't make things difficult for you anymore." "He's gone." Spreading her hands, Xianxia said with a smile. "Gone?" His pupils contracted, and Muli's face became even more unpleasant. "Do you think he'd be foolish enough to return to this camp?" Smiling with a hint of mockery, Xianxia looked at the mercenaries who had left their beds. These mercenaries were good friends of hers. As long as they were here, Muli wouldn't dare to attack her. "Idiot!" Cursing in a low voice, Muli took a deep breath and swore, "Entering the magical beast mountain range, his chance of death is even higher." Not caring about his cursing, Xianxia's small, rosy mouth curved up, full of sarcasm and ridicule. "Miss Xianxia, the basic herbs have been fully collected. Do we need to return now?" A herb collector from the 10,000 medicine store hurried over to Xianxia and said respectfully, "All right, let's get going." Xianxia smiled and nodded. Her beautiful eyes swept around the camp, and she suddenly said, gently, "Everyone, because there was a slight incident with the wolf-head mercenary group, I would like to ask you all to be a little stronger and guard them closely. I wonder if that's possible." Hearing Xianxia say this, the mercenaries were startled at first, then suddenly understood. They quickly nodded vigorously towards Xianxia. Watching Xianxia smilingly arrange the mercenary team, the corner of Muli's mouth twitched slightly. He knew this was Xianxia defending against him. After arranging her trusted guards, Xianxia turned back to look at Muli, who had been standing still. She smiled and said, "Young Master Muli, Xiaoyan asked me to relay a message when he left. As long as he hands over the treasures he took inside the mountain cave, I'm willing to overlook the matter of him injuring me." Muli said with a cold laugh. "Haha, young Master Muli, you are mistaken. Xiaoyan asked me to tell you he will return." Xianxia said gently with a sweet smile. His pupils quickly contracted, and Muli heavily exhaled. His eyebrows were filled with killing intent. After a long while, he finally nodded coldly and said, "Good. As long as he is capable of surviving inside the magical beast mountain range, I will wait for him to come for revenge." Finished speaking, he angrily flicked his sleeve, then led the few mercenaries under his command away from the area. Watching Muli leave, the smile on Xianxia's face gradually disappeared. A hint of coldness flashed in her beautiful eyes. She gently pushed aside the strands of hair on her forehead, and suddenly looked up at the distant high mountain peak. The morning sun shone down. On the mountain peak, the silhouette of a young man seemed to be faintly visible, standing tall. Standing on the mountain peak, watching the mercenary team leaving, Xiaoyan shook his head. His hands slowly clenched, and he laughed coldly, "Bastard. Wait for me next time. I swear I will remember what happened last night. The next time we meet, I will return it to you tenfold." Taking a deep breath of the refreshing morning air, Xiaoyan turned around. With the black heavy sword on his back, he walked towards the depths of the forest. He knew that the time for real rigorous cultivation had begun. Inside the forest, the air was fresh. Xiaoyan crawled into a dense bush, his body covered in dry leaves. He disguised himself extremely carefully, forcing his breathing to the lowest level possible. His aura was almost completely suppressed, and his body was like an ordinary rock, unmoving. His eyes peered through the bush, intently watching a red giant wolf approaching. Today was the second day after Xiao Yan and Xiao Yixian separated. In these 2 days, he had continuously ventured deep into the magical beast mountain range. According to his speed, he should have already entered the outermost circle of the magical beast mountain range. In the past 2 days, Xiao Yan had been attacked by magical beasts no less than 10 times. He won 2 of those battles, and in the others, he had to flee for his life in a panic. However, fighting desperately in the magical beast mountain range also brought out a hint of bloodthirst in Xiao Yan. In front of Xiao Yan was a red giant wolf, an adult first rank fire wolf. In terms of strength, it was comparable to a 6-star doja. Xiao Yan had encountered one during previous battles with magical beasts, but because of the heavy sword constraint on his back, he ended up having to flee in a sorry state. Gently pressing his finger onto the ground, Xiao Yan saw the fire wolf almost within reach. His body suddenly bent like a bow. It paused for a moment, then, like an arrow released from a bowstring, shot out fiercely from within the bush like a bolt of lightning. Instantly, dry leaves flew everywhere, then slowly fell to the ground. His body flew through the layer of dry leaves. Xiao Yan rushed behind the giant wolf. His tightly clenched hand carried a fierce surge of energy, violently slamming onto the giant wolf's waist. Octane blast. A soft shout rang out in his heart. The extremely strong energy slammed onto the giant wolf's body, creating a dull sound. The giant wolf's body was sent flying more than 10 meters. Then hit a dry tree trunk in front of it. Its 4 legs trembled for a moment and finally, it couldn't endure it and collapsed. His foot strongly pushed off the ground. Xiao Yan sighed in relief. Hiding for a long time made his limbs feel a little numb. He quickly stepped forward, took a small dagger from his waist, and opened the giant wolf's head. Immediately, a small red crystal appeared right before his eyes. Oh, a core. Looking at the red crystal, Xiao Yan was stunned, then joyfully took it out, completely ignoring the fresh blood on his hand. He wiped it on his body a little. This was the first magical core he had harvested in the past 2 days. After taking the magical core, Xiao Yan casually left the giant wolf's carcass aside. He raised his head to determine the direction, then shot out like a bolt of lightning towards the direction where the sound of flowing water seemed to come from. His agile figure weaved through the layers of obstacles in the dense forest. Xiao Yan rushed for a while, and the area in front of him suddenly opened up. The roaring sound of a waterfall made him ecstatic. Passing the last obstructing large tree, Xiao Yan looked at the scene before him and couldn't help but take a deep breath. In front of Xiao Yan was a massive waterfall. It was like a silver stream, fiercely pouring down from the high mountain. The flowing water crashed onto a large rock, causing vapor to fill the air. On both sides of the waterfall, there were many natural mountain caves formed on the rock face, which made Xiao Yan very happy. As long as he blocked the cave entrance with a few large rocks, he could isolate himself from the magical beasts outside. He wouldn't have to worry about danger when cultivating. Finally found a place to cultivate. Spreading his hands, Xiao Yan powerfully inhaled a breath of moisture-laden air. Rubbing his nose, with a flip of his hand, 2 scrolls suddenly appeared in his palm. These 2 scrolls were obtained by Xiao Yan in the mountain cave. Previously, because he was in a perilous situation, he didn't have time to observe them carefully. Now that he was safe, he could finally study them at ease. Crossing a ravine, Xiao Yan slowly walked towards the waterfall, his eyes carefully scanning the surroundings. After seeing no signs of magical beasts often appearing, he finally sighed in relief. After walking to the rock face, Xiaoyan meticulously chose for a long time, finally selecting a mountain cave about 4 or 5 meters long. Carefully stepping onto a wet and somewhat slippery stone, Xiaoyan was like a nimble monkey, quickly crawling into the chosen mountain cave. The inside of the mountain cave was quite cool. And the interior space was not small, making it spacious and comfortable for Xiaoyan alone. His eyes meticulously scanned the ground inside the mountain cave several times. Seeing that no magical beast had ever stayed here, he finally felt at ease and cleaned the mountain cave once. He took out some items he had purchased beforehand from the storage ring and set up a soft bed for temporary rest. After arranging the necessary living supplies, Xiaoyan used large rocks to block the cave entrance, leaving just enough space for one person to pass through. Since he would be staying here, ensuring safety was very important. Finished, Xiaoyan dusted the dirt off his hands. Looking at the dark cave on all sides, he pondered for a moment, then took out 3 moonlight stones from the storage ring and embedded them into the rock wall, making the entire mountain cave brightly lit. A soft light radiated into every corner. Looking at the illuminated mountain cave, Xiaoyan subtly grinned. He sat down on the soft bed, exhaled a long breath, crossed his legs, placed his hands in front of his body in the cultivation hand seal, and slowly began to recover from the mental exhaustion and dou-qi depletion of the past 2 days. As Xiaoyan quieted down, his breathing gradually became steady. One breath formed a perfect cycle. Each breath was one rotation of the cycle. Continuous streams of energy from the space around his body flowed out, then entered his body with Xiaoyan's breathing. After being refined by the meridians, they were absorbed into the dou-qi whirlpool located in his lower abdomen, Dantian region. During his quiet cultivation, Xiaoyan's consciousness gradually sank into his body to observe, allowing him to clearly see the movement of dou-qi inside him. His consciousness passed through the main meridians, finally reaching the lower abdomen. The dou-qi whirlpool slowly rotating appeared in his field of vision. Seeing this miraculous dou-qi whirlpool again, Xiaoyan felt a slight joy in his heart. After nearly a year of cultivation, the small, pale white whirlpool he saw when he first advanced to Doja had now transformed into a pale yellow color, possibly due to the dou-qi cultivation technique, and its area had also significantly expanded many times. Xiaoyan could clearly feel that the density of the dou-qi contained within this whirlpool was at least 10 times more than before. Looking at the pale yellow dou-qi continuously being drawn from the meridians into the dou-qi whirlpool, Xiaoyan smiled, and his consciousness slowly withdrew from his body. When his dou-qi was fully recovered, he slowly opened his eyes. Stretching his body a few times, a refreshed and alert spirit returned to Xiaoyan. Clenching his hands tightly, Xiaoyan could feel that after a period of hard cultivation, his current strength was progressing from 5-star doja towards the 6-star level. Perhaps in just another month or 2, he would officially enter the 6-star level. By then, if he removed the constraint of the heavy sword on his back, coupled with his Xian level dou techniques, he could contend with an 8-star doja, provided that the 8-star doja's mastery of dou techniques was lower than Xiaoyan's. After all, Xiaoyan's current dou-qi technique was only at the Huang level low grade, which was the only threat to him. Adjusting his energy to a normal level, with a flip of his hand, a black scroll appeared in Xiaoyan's hand. It was the Xian level high grade dou technique, flight dou technique. Flying in the air was the dream of every person, and Xiaoyan was also very interested in flight. Flight was the best way to escape death. If it weren't for Yixian's azure eagle during the encirclement earlier, it would have been impossible for both of them to escape from such a situation where they were surrounded on all sides, unless they could fly straight into the sky. Currently, on the dou-qi continent, transforming dou-qi into wings was only achievable by dou-wang powerhouses. Others could only look up at the sky and sigh. But Xiaoyan unexpectedly obtaining this extremely rare flight dou technique could help him break free from that constraint. Gripping the scroll with both hands, Xiaoyan subtly licked his lips. He untied the string tied around the scroll, then slowly opened it. The black scroll unfolded and a pair of black eagle wings, giving off a chilling aura, immediately appeared before his eyes. The eagle wings weren't very large because they were drawn on the scroll, but they faintly radiated a subtle heat. Their strange appearance suggested they were not just mere drawings. The eagle wings were somewhat dark, subtly revealing a few purple veins. Looking closely, the two wings seemed like ordinary black iron, possessing a peculiar metallic feel. The feathers on the eagle wings emitted a faint heat. Xiaoyan gently blew on the surface, and he couldn't help but be startled. Under a light breeze, the feathers beneath the eagle wings lifted up just like an ordinary wing, which was truly miraculous. Xiaoyan's gaze swept over the eagle wings, then suddenly stopped at a line of small text above. He opened his eyes wide and softly read. Black Flame. Purple Cloud Eagle, a 5th-rank flying magical beast. It is rumored to possess a trace of the ancient phoenix bloodline. Among all flying magical beasts, its speed is ranked among the top. Its nature is cunning and ferocious, making it very difficult to capture. It only lives in the cloud blue lands, Tiannan continent. 5th-rank magical beast. Xiaoyan was shaken. He swallowed a mouthful of saliva. This was equivalent to a human Do Wang powerhouse. This Do technique, named Eagle Wings, is also called Purple Cloud Wings. I, along with a few friends, spent 3 years successfully obtaining a black flame purple cloud eagle. By studying its two wings, we managed to create this Do technique that allows humans to fly. Before my passing, I sealed this Do technique with Do Qi. Only those who cultivate it can open it. Remember this. Truly a madman, daring to capture a Do Wang level flying magical beast. Exclaiming in awe. Xiaoyan was somewhat curious about the level of the powerhouse who created this Do technique. His eyes slowly moved away from the text. Xiaoyan cautiously extended his hand, gently stroking the slightly black pair of eagle wings. Why does it feel so real when I touch it? The tactile sensation of stroking a real bird's wing made Xiaoyan very surprised. He carefully stroked it again. And his expression suddenly changed. His hand quickly withdrew as if electrocuted. He cried out in fear, "Is there a soul existing inside these eagle wings?" Xiaoyan's soul perception was already extremely excellent. Just now, when he touched the eagle wings, he clearly felt a violent soul, filled with malice, hidden within it. What? Sure enough, there is a soul hidden within. But it is a soul without consciousness. An old voice, full of surprise, suddenly rang out from the ring on Xiaoyan's finger. Without consciousness. Xiaoyan was stunned and asked doubtfully. I think that when the person who created this flight Do technique, they must have captured the flying magical beast's soul along with its wings, then merged them together. Of course. This so-called merging must have involved some corresponding special secret techniques to truly form this Do technique. No wonder flight Do techniques are almost lost now. The reason is that the process of creation requires understanding this strange item. Yao Lao said with a light laugh. So cultivating this won't have any side effects? Xiaoyan asked, somewhat uneasy. The soul you sense just now should be that of the black flame purple cloud eagle. After countless years of refinement, it has lost its intelligence, and more than half of it has completely turned into a beast's instinct. As long as you take precautions when using it, nothing should happen. Yao Lao said. Hearing Yao Lao say this, Xiaoyan finally breathed a sigh of relief, but he was somewhat afraid that cultivating this might lead to him being controlled by the soul of the black flame purple cloud eagle. After all, the intelligence of a 5th-rank magical beast was not much inferior to that of humans. Focusing his attention back on the black eagle wings on the scroll, Xiaoyan carefully read the cultivation steps recorded on the scroll several times. He frowned and softly said, It says on this page that during the cultivation process, the soul within the purple cloud eagle's wings might attack the cultivator. If you can withstand the attack of its soul, then you can continue cultivating. If not, I advise you not to cultivate it. TSK, it seems cultivating this flight dough technique is still somewhat dangerous. Xiaoyan sighed, saying somewhat helplessly. To obtain such a rare item, one naturally has to put in some special effort. Yao Lao smiled, with your current soul level, you don't need to worry too much about the attack of the purple cloud eagle's soul. Although it is a 5th rank magical beast, it is now only a residual soul, and not overly strong. Hearing this, Xiaoyan nodded slightly, then gritted his teeth, and made up his mind. He slowly spread his palms. His hands moved onto the scroll, forcefully pressing onto the 2 soft wings. Taking a deep breath, Xiaoyan slowly closed his eyes. A moment after his hands pressed onto the eagle wings, the tyrannical eagle soul inside the eagle wings instantly let out a sharp cry that shook the soul. Finally, it followed Xiaoyan's arm, rushing fiercely into his mind like a drill. Being attacked by a soul for the first time, Xiaoyan's entire body suddenly trembled, and his face turned pale, completely devoid of color. Hold firm to your spirit, protect your head well. Let it attack. Yao Lao's shout came from the ring. Gritting his teeth and nodding, Xiaoyan used his soul force to surround his head, forming a protective barrier. He was finally able to gradually suppress the sharp cry that was attacking his soul. Seemingly realizing that the cry was ineffective, the soul of the purple cloud eagle remained silent for a moment. Then, this tyrannical emotion suddenly surged out of the scroll, heading towards the depths of Xiaoyan's mind. You are reading the novel copied at https://trueinfo.vn. Stabilize your mind. Do not let it control your emotions, or else you will only be a wild beast focused on killing. Yao Lao said in a deep voice, his voice coming through just in time. Taking another deep breath, Xiaoyan tightly guarded his mind, not daring to let the tyrannical soul invade even a little. This time, the soul battle lasted for 10 minutes before the purple cloud eagle's soul slowly retreated in defeat. In terms of strength, although Xiaoyan was far inferior to a 5th rank magical beast, after being suppressed for countless years, this purple cloud eagle was no different from a crippled wild beast now. After the tyrannical wild beast's soul retreated from his mind like a tide, Xiaoyan's entire body instantly felt exhausted and weak. His face was pale, looking extremely miserable. This kind of soul attack was far more tiring than normal energy consumption. Did I succeed? Wiping the cold sweat from his forehead, Xiaoyan asked. Yes, you are qualified to cultivate this. Hearing this, Xiaoyan smiled happily. His hands once again pressed onto the eagle wings, but this time, there was no more attack. He subtly opened his mouth, and the dou qi within Xiaoyan's body circulated according to the trajectory guided by the scroll. Then, the dou qi moved to his arms, slowly entering his palms. As the dou qi appeared in his palms, the 2 black eagle wings inside the scroll suddenly radiated a dazzling light. The 2 colors, purple and black, mixed together, becoming increasingly dark. Finally, they transformed into 2 extremely small streams of purple and black light, quickly entering Xiaoyan's palms like lightning. The 2 extremely small streams of light, after entering Xiaoyan's body, circulated rapidly along the meridians. Then, they moved to the meridians in Xiaoyan's spine, suddenly stopping. They then turned and forcefully pulled the meridian, splitting it into 2 small single meridian endpoints. These 2 single meridian endpoints were pulled from within to the area of his spine before slowly stopping. The sudden disappearance of the 2 eagle wings from the surface of the scroll made Xiaoyan slightly stunned. Then, he suddenly let out a tragic, mournful cry. Sweat instantly poured down his forehead. He clenched his hands together, breathing heavily, and cursed, "What the hell is this thing doing?" Tossing and turning on the bed, Xiaoyan forcefully bit his lip. A trail of blood overflowed from his mouth. After enduring for a while, Xiaoyan finally couldn't bear this kind of pain from meridians being torn apart and immediately fell unconscious. When Xiaoyan woke up from his unconsciousness, his entire body felt like it was being pricked by needles, numb with pain. He lightly rubbed the storage ring with one finger and a small jade bottle appeared in his palm. He struggled to open the bottle cap, and immediately poured all the pink liquid inside into his mouth. After drinking this pink liquid, which had the effect of relieving pain, the pain all over Xiaoyan's body slowly subsided. Struggling to get up, Xiaoyan picked up the black scroll and found that all the text and the drawing of the two eagle wings had disappeared. Looking at the empty scroll, Xiaoyan instantly thought of something. He immediately took off all his clothes, then took out a mirror from the storage ring. Relying on the reflected light, Xiaoyan could see that a small black eagle wing pattern had appeared on his back at some point. Are these the purple cloud eagle's wings? Muttering with a touch of doubt, the dou qi in Xiaoyan's body immediately split according to his intention, and entered the two single meridians, channeling into the small eagle wing pattern on his back. Receiving the dou qi, the black pattern also radiated a faint purple light, finally transforming into a normal, solid pair of wings. Furthermore, the area of the black eagle wings slowly grew and expanded outwards. Curiously looking at the purple-black eagle wings behind him, Xiaoyan tried to control them to flap. A very small pushing force, tending to lift him up, was generated. However, the pushing force was too small, not enough to make Xiaoyan fly off the ground. For the purple cloud wings to achieve flight, it requires considerable dou qi consumption. With your current strength, and the fact that you haven't mastered this dou technique yet, you can only manage flight over extremely short distances. Looking at Xiaoyan's slightly comical gesture, Yao Lao couldn't help but chuckle. Grinning, Xiaoyan nodded. He hadn't held much hope for immediate flight. The small effect today was already enough to satisfy him. After all, everything required slow progress. Stopping the dou qi flow into the eagle wings, the wings immediately transformed back into a black eagle wing pattern stuck onto his body. Slowly relaxing his body, Xiaoyan put away the black scroll in front of him. After pondering for a moment, he took out an extremely ancient scroll from the storage ring. Looking at the somewhat old, yellow-colored ancient scroll, Xiaoyan excitedly clenched his hand. Something that could be hidden by the deceased senior in the gap of his skull, an extremely secretive place, must not be an ordinary item. His hand gently opened the scroll, then slowly unfolded it. Looking at the scroll in his hand, Xiaoyan was slightly stunned. What is this? Appearing before his eyes was a piece of slightly old, yellowed leather, made from unknown material. Looking at it, the drawn lines seemed to have no rules. Xiaoyan pointed a finger at a line, then slowly moved along it, but it eventually went off the edge of the leather piece. He didn't discover anything special. What the hell is this thing? Looking at this mysterious object that resembled an ordinary drawing, Xiaoyan frowned. Inside the black ring on his finger, Yao Lao also subtly appeared. His eyes swept over the ancient leather piece, then he frowned and mused. It seems it's an incomplete map. Map? Incomplete. Hearing this, Xiaoyan blinked, and his interest was immediately piqued. Ignoring Xiaoyan's excitement, Yao Lao slowly spread the leather piece out completely, carefully looking at it again. Suddenly, his eyes focused on a faint lotus flower drawn inside the leather piece. His expression slightly changed, and he leaned down, carefully scrutinizing the lotus flower on this mysterious leather piece. Looking at the lotus flower, perhaps due to the long passage of time, it was slightly yellowed and somewhat indistinct. However, if observed carefully, one could roughly make out the entire shape. The lotus flower was black. Outside the lotus flower, a cluster of black flames seemed to be faintly visible. Looking at it, the lotus flower itself seemed to be hidden, giving the viewer a peculiar and demonic sensation. Teacher, did you discover something? Looking at Yao Lao's expression, Xiaoyan was slightly startled. Living with him for so long, this was the first time he had seen Yao Lao reveal such a look. Could it be the purifying demonic lotus flame? His eyes fixed intently on the slightly strange black lotus flower. After observing it meticulously, Yao Lao muttered with a hint of doubt. Purifying demonic lotus flame. Blinking in confusion, Xiaoyan's heart suddenly stirred and he asked, is it an abnormal flame? Yes, it is a type of abnormal flame, and furthermore, it is the most mysterious abnormal flame in the abnormal flame ranking. Yao Lao's old face was somewhat solemn as he nodded, saying in a deep voice. The purifying demonic lotus flame is ranked third in the abnormal flame ranking. It has the characteristic of purifying all things. Anything that touches it will be purified into nothingness. Its power is extremely terrifying. This type of abnormal flame is extremely rare in the world. It seems only 2 or 3 blossoms still exist. No one knows their exact location, nor does anyone know who recorded the information about this abnormal flame. However, no one has actually seen it in person. The reason I can recognize it is because I was fortunate enough to see some brief traces of this abnormal flame when I was searching for abnormal flames before. TSK, could this map be pointing to a way to find the purifying demonic lotus flame? Yao Lao looked at the old leather piece with some shock and lamented. It's a pity this is only an incomplete map. Relying on such vague information, we won't be able to find it. Xiaoyan's interest had been piqued, but since this was only a fragment of a map, he couldn't help but feel regret. Having a little information about the purifying demonic lotus flame is good enough. Even if you found the entire map now, with your current strength, you wouldn't be able to acquire it. It's better to take it slow. Perhaps you'll find the remaining parts of this fragmented map later. Yao Lao smiled and said, if you successfully manage to devour this purifying demonic lotus flame, I wonder what level the flame mantra will evolve to. Isn't the highest level the heavenly level high grade? Xiaoyan rubbed his hands and curled his lip. Not necessarily. Yao Lao suddenly stopped smiling mysteriously. He waved his hand and said indifferently, the Dochi continent is vast. When you reach a higher level, you will naturally know what levels exist. You are only starting from the lowest position now. Don't forget that even a small wolf-head mercenary group almost cost you your life. Seeing Yao Lao's mysterious appearance, Xiaoyan had no choice but to nod. He said lightly, who doesn't start from the lowest level and work their way up? Yao Lao smiled faintly. His body trembled, transforming into a stream of light that entered the ring, leaving behind a laugh. Rest well. Tomorrow we continue the rigorous cultivation. Hearing this, Xiaoyan rubbed his face, grinned, and said, I'm looking forward to it. The gentle light of a new day illuminated the land. At a large waterfall, a streak of light moved wildly, finally turning into a silver stream of light, plunging straight down from high above into the waterfall. Immediately, a roaring sound echoed in the small valley. You are reading the novel copied at Tree in full. Standing under the waterfall, Xiaoyan took a deep breath of the damp air. Raising his head to look at the extremely high and massive waterfall, he couldn't help but feel a little anxious in his heart. In the open area behind Xiaoyan, there were more than 10 wooden posts. Muthung, these wooden posts were suspended about 2 meters high on a large tree. A strong gust of wind caused them all to sway. The black ring subtly trembled and Yao Lao gently appeared. His eyes looked at the more than 10 wooden posts, and he nodded in satisfaction. His eyes, showing a mischievous hint, stared at Xiaoyan. Pointing at the wooden posts, he smiled and said, from now on, every morning, I want you to come here to cultivate. I will control these wooden posts to attack you. You must dodge all of them. While dodging, you are not allowed to take off the heavy sword on your back. Ah, I almost forgot, you can call it the heavy mystery ruler. While dodging, you are not allowed to remove the heavy mystery ruler, and you are also not allowed to use suction palm or fire eruption palm. Hearing this, Xiaoyan nodded slightly. A smile appeared on his face. He was actually somewhat confident in his own speed. Want to try it out? Seeing Xiaoyan's expression, Yao Lao suddenly smiled, and a cunning look flashed in his smile. If you wish. Shrugging, Xiaoyan touched the tip of his toe, and his body lightly landed on a wooden post. His hands subtly moved into a fighting stance, seeming to contain a hint of a master's demeanor. Raising his hand towards Yao Lao, Xiaoyan smiled and said, "Come on, let me see what kind of hardship these things of yours will bring me. You have ambition. Let's see how long you can last." Nodding with a devilish laugh, Yao Lao waved his sleeve. A surge of fierce wind rushed out from his sleeve. Instantly, the more than 10 wooden posts floating in midair began to fly chaotically. Suddenly, one separated and lunged towards Xiaoyan, who was standing on a wooden post. The attacking wooden post carried an oppressive energy, making Xiaoyan's expression slightly solemn. His eyes intently watched the wooden post approaching closer and closer. His body suddenly lowered, clinging close to the wooden post he was standing on, dangerously soaring past just above his head. Before his lowered body could stabilize, another wooden post rushed towards him. Xiaoyan touched the tip of his toe onto the wooden post, intending to leave it, but his expression suddenly changed. He saw that his foot, stepping on the wooden post, seemed to be stuck to it. The sudden change made Xiaoyan shocked. But his composure was not bad. The dou qi in his body shifted according to his will, quickly focusing on his other leg, which then stomped fiercely. His 2 feet immediately broke free from the constraint, and at the same time, his body managed to dodge the rushing wooden post. Although he avoided this attack, he couldn't escape the 5 other wooden posts rushing towards him. Simultaneously, they fiercely struck him, sending him flying out. Smiling longly at Xiaoyan, who was lying on the ground groaning, Yao Lao said softly, "How is it? What did you do to the wooden post?" Xiaoyan gently rubbed his chest, huffing and puffing. "There's a layer of adhesive applied to the outside of the wooden posts. Every time you move, you have to use dou qi to neutralize that adhesive force. Otherwise, if you can't dodge in time, you'll suffer the consequences like this. Therefore, while dodging, the dou qi in your body must maintain a constant state of flow. The longer you can maintain this state, the more benefits you will gain later." Yao Lao said indifferently. "This thing is used to hone your agility and your ability to coordinate dou qi." Turning around and pointing at the wooden posts, Yao Lao smiled and said, "Wooden post, muthung, a type of wooden training equipment, cylindrical, capable of rotating, with various wooden weapons like knives, swords, staffs, or clubs attached to its body. When I learned martial arts in the past, I trained with this, but it only had staffs. When it spun, 4 staffs would hit me at once, which hurt like hell." Thank you for listening to the story on KTN Storyverse. Please like, share, and subscribe to enjoy more amazing stories.